Chapter 725. In the days that followed, the Tai Ching rod was like a diligent gardener, tirelessly imparting knowledge to the players and bestowing power upon them. It contributed to the development of Lu Wu's calamity cause. The players were extremely happy about it. It was addictive to be a freeloader. It was the first time that the players encountered a player who gave them attributes and secret codices after playing for so many years. However, during the days of freeloading, the players also discovered that the rod was abnormal. Therefore, the players who had already noticed some clues immediately reported their findings to everyone on the forum. Among them, the post about reading more than 10,000 scrolls shocked the players. Based on the recent findings, let me talk about the Tai Ching rod. In short, I feel that something is very wrong. You will have to judge for yourselves. OP. Reading more than 10,000 scrolls content. Hello everyone, I am reading more than 10,000 scrolls. After queuing for 28 days, it was finally my turn to touch the Tai Ching rod. I also obtained a secret codex, Moon God spell, as I wished. Logically speaking, everything should be normal. However, after I carefully understood the Moon God spell, I felt that it was extremely abnormal. If one wanted to cultivate this secret tome, they would need a special spiritual material called Sky Spirit Stone. However, after I opened the auction house and searched around, I didn't find such a spiritual material. Although our auction house was all-inclusive, it was normal to not find some rare spiritual materials. After all, the world was extremely vast, and there must be many spiritual materials that we had not encountered. I did not suspect anything at that time. Although the Codex, Moon God spell, stated that the Sky Soul Stone could be used as a payment of soul coins, I was very curious and wanted to know what the Sky Soul Stone was. Thus, I once again came to the familiar Library of the Dead, and began to flip through the book. The information that I found next made me feel that there was something wrong with the Tai Ching rod. According to the information that I found, the Sky Soul Stone was a common spiritual material used in the Heaven Realm. It was equivalent to the Een Soul Stone in the game world that we are currently in. Everyone should be familiar with the Een Soul Stone. It was the protection fee that C. Leek demanded from Shah. Currently, our auction house also has a lot of Een Soul Stones. However, most of the people who come into contact with this type of spiritual material are life classes. Ordinary players may not understand this spiritual material, so let me explain it to you first. After understanding the details of the Sky Soul Stone, I had a new doubt. Where was the Heaven Realm? What kind of power was it? First of all, veteran players should be familiar with the words, Heavenly Realm. At first, I was like everyone else, thinking that the Heaven Realm was a force that lived in the sky above our head. But after I looked up the information, I discovered that it wasn't the case. The truth is that the Heaven Realm is actually a plane, a new plane that is completely different from the world we are currently in. It is equivalent to us going to other realms when we fight across realms. This discovery shocked me. In other words, our previous guesses were wrong. After that, I made a thorough investigation. After all, everything must be based on facts, not just speculation. However, after reading many historical records, I confirmed my guess. He had also confirmed that this Tai Ching rod was not a product of this world. Actually, the Tai Ching rod's analysis panel has already given us the answer, it's just that we haven't seen through the essence. According to the analysis panel of the Clear Chi rod, it was the weapon that the Celestial Emperor, the Grand Elder, carried with him. At the time, when I saw these words, I thought that Celestial Emperor was just a title given to some expert in this world. In fact, this concept was wrong. Because the Celestial Emperor is not a creature that lives in the same plane as us. He lives in the Heaven Realm. In reality, we had already come into contact with the forces of the Heaven Realm long ago. For example, that talisman, his analysis panel showed that he came from the Heaven Realm. Also, during a battle across realms we came to a desolate planet. The creatures there were also related to the Heaven Realm, after several battles with the Heaven Realm, we can already confirm that we might become enemies with the forces of the Heaven Realm in the future. Furthermore, this force should be extremely powerful. At the very least, it shouldn't be weaker than the strongest boss of the world we are currently in. This is a deduction based on the theory that the later the levels in the game, the more difficult it is. It might not be correct. Thus, I started to suspect the Tai Ching Rod. As a weapon for the members of the enemy forces in the future, it possesses its own consciousness. Why would it be so kind as to give us an opportunity? There is definitely an ulterior motive. However, the Library of Hell's database is too huge. I couldn't find any useful information in a short period of time. Thus, I found my historical investigation team and started a follow-up investigation on the Tai Ching Rod. First, we started with the Honored Demonic Ape. After all, from what we know, the Tai Ching Rod was the weapon of the Honored Demonic Ape. Although we had investigated the Honored Demonic Ape previously, we only understood a part of his history and it wasn't complete. This time, we conducted a thorough investigation. In the end, we made a discovery. In the Path of Hell's Second Realm chapter, Chapter 3765, the entire story of the appearance of the Tai Ching Rod was described. Due to the length of the book, I won't describe the details in detail. Those who are interested can go to the library to take a look. I will simply explain it here. Roughly after the Tai Ching Rod appeared in the Path of Hell's Second Realm, the demonic ape clan started to rise. It can be said that its existence changed the structure of the Second Realm. It was also the crux of the reason why the Honored Demonic Ape overthrew the Corpse Clan. In the past, we said that the Honored Demonic Ape was extremely talented and was able to cultivate to the God state in a short period of time. However, this investigation overturned our previous views. In reality, the reason why the Honored Demonic Ape was so powerful was because of the Tai Ching Rod that came from the Heaven Realm. Furthermore, the records clearly described that the Honored Demonic Ape used the Tai Ching Rod as his faith. At the same time, he used his faith to exchange for cultivation resources and cultivation techniques from the Tai Ching Rod. Isn't this very familiar? The behavior of the Honored Demonic Ape back then is so similar to what we are doing now. Everyone can look back at the live broadcast of the Second Realm War. At that time, the Venerable Tree wanted to return the Tai Ching Rod to the Honored Demonic Ape, but the Honored Demonic Ape refused. What does this mean? It means that the Honored Demonic Ape has already realized that there is something wrong with the rod and doesn't want to take it anymore. The Venerable Tree also said that it is a scourge. It can indeed give good things to others, but there must be a conspiracy. I can be sure that the artifact spirit inside is playing a big game of chess. In order to confirm this point, I also searched through many fortuitous encounter sharing posts that the players posted on the forum. I found that the secret manuals that they obtained were all products of the Heaven Realm without exception. This process is completely consistent with the process of the Tai Ching Rod and the Honored Demonic Ape establishing faith. From this, I came to a conclusion. The Tai Ching Rod wants to control us players, brand us with the mark of faith, establish its supreme image, and then control us players to do things for it, just like how it controlled the Honored Demonic Ape. The above conclusions are based on the information I have obtained. If you have any different views, you can post them in the comments section. Invincible_loneliness. Science Emperor is awesome, you actually found some clues. 666, tip, 100 soul coins, watermelon_taro. What the F***CK? Does this mean that this rod is going to train us as the Honored Demonic Ape? And then control us? Roasting_jade_hair_phil_hugging_chung. Does this mean that the Heaven Realm is the same concept as the outer world? It is not in our main world at all, but in another plane? Shueli_the_strongest. It first gives us benefits, then waits for the right time, like boiling a frog in warm water, and finally kills us. How terrifying! Crayon_Shinchan, we want the benefits. As for faith, I believe that even leeks will not believe in a rod, so it is time to squeeze it dry. Laughing emoji. The players in the forum were discussing the speculation of reading more than 10,000 scrolls. In order to confirm this, a large number of players entered the mansion of the dead library to search for clues. At this moment, the advantage of numbers was reflected. Many players found information that even reading more than 10,000 scrolls did not find, which also confirmed the point that the Tai Ching rod established faith to control the honored demonic ape. After knowing the ugly face of the artifact spirit inside the rod, the players' attitude toward the Tai Ching rod changed. However, the players did not show this on their faces. This was because they were prepared to squeeze the Tai Ching rod dry first. As for whether they would be controlled, the players were not worried at all. This was because they knew clearly that as players, they were immune to soul attack. This trick was effective against all creatures in the game, but as players, they did not have to worry at all. The players did not suspect anything about this, thinking that it was a special setting that the lousy officials had given to the players for the sake of the game experience. Therefore, they would just continue to freeload and let the Tai Ching rod continue to deliver. If they did not squeeze him dry, then they would be considered as the players' loss. After waiting for a few days, the players did not show the slightest abnormality. Those who wanted to chat chatted, those who wanted to tell stories told stories, as if nothing had happened. They continued to reap the opportunity from the Tai Ching rod. However, the Tai Ching rod did not find any abnormality. He was very cautious and even secretly controlled a few players. These players also did what he wanted them to do according to his thoughts. Therefore, from the Tai Ching rod's point of view, everything was going according to his plan. However, the artifact spirit inside the Tai Ching rod did not know. Every time he wanted to control the players to do something, a game notification would ring in the player's mind. Game notification. Receiving the thought transmission from the Tai Ching rod, indicating you to do the action of spinning on the spot. This damage has been exempted by the soul. Although they were exempted, the players knew that they could not expose themselves and still did as the Tai Ching rod asked. According to a certain player, they would do whatever the Tai Ching rod wanted them to do now, as if they were fooling fools. However, the player's behavior gave the Tai Ching rod a concept. This race was easier to control than the demonic ape clan. With just a little infusion of faith, it became obedient. It was simply the best tool to be used. At this moment, the artifact spirit inside the Tai Ching rod fell into the beautiful fantasy that the players weaved for it. It was even thinking of creating a super race to deplete the combat power of the underworld and lay the groundwork for the war between the two realms after the Taishang recovered. Although the power source in the rod was depleting every day, the artifact spirit of the Tai Ching rod had no regrets when it thought of the future. It worked diligently for Lu Wu 24 hours a day. However, as the days passed, the artifact spirit inside the Tai Ching rod also noticed that something was wrong. Why was there such a large number of members in this race? It had already been 2 months. Why were there still so many players? If this continued, when would the end be reached? It felt like its body was being hollowed out. Chapter 726. Under the relentless efforts of Tai Ching rod, the strength of the players began to improve significantly. Many of the players who were well prepared started to attack the Ghost King realm trial after obtaining the opportunity. Relying on this opportunity, a large number of players crossed the threshold of the realm that they couldn't cross and advanced to the Ghost King realm. It could be said that Tai Ching rod played an important role in the improvement of the players' combat power at this stage. However, as time went by, the artifact spirit in Tai Ching rod felt hopeless. It originally planned to control the entire race of players at once, but it still saw new faces every day as if there was no end to it. It was about to be emptied. He couldn't imagine how huge this race was. Was this still a race from the underworld? Did they have enough resources to feed so many of their kind? Why not birth control? Tai Ching Rod's artifact spirit was full of doubts. In fact, Lu Wu had a deep understanding of Tai Ching Rod's depression. Fortunately, he didn't need to feed the players at all. It was entirely up to the players to fight for themselves. However, the expenditure of each activity was a huge sum of soul coins. This was also the reason why he didn't dare to simply start an activity. It was also the reason why the players thought that the stupid official was stingy. However, unlike Lu Wu, Tai Ching Rod was a one-sided contribution, while Lu Wu could rely on the players to collect soul coins. It was a completely different concept. However, seeing that Tai Ching Rod was willing to help him distribute benefits to the players, he was gratified. He even helped the players create a virtual panel on Tai Ching Rod so that they could clearly see the percentage of energy left in Tai Ching Rod. This would allow the players to be squeezed even more. In such a one-sided demand, Tai Ching Rod was a little autistic. If he continued to give it, he was sure that his inventory would not be enough. Continuous contribution would weaken its ability. Although its own characteristics such as material and hardness would not change, it would make it unable to act independently because all actions required energy. If all the energy was exhausted, it wouldn't be able to go anywhere. Even if it still had thoughts, it would just be a rod. However, thinking of its own plan, it gritted its teeth and chose to persist. However, when the remaining energy was consumed to about 10%, Tai Ching Rod was completely autistic. He realized one thing. This race could not afford to be nurtured with its ability. Unless there was an endless supply of lake water from the heavenly Tao realm. Realizing this, Tai Ching Rod changed its mind. It didn't want to nurture the players anymore and decided to order this race to wage war against the outside world. In response, the Tai Ching Rod took the initiative to target the neutral clans of Beiki. Because these races did not participate in any wars, they were weak, so the players never attacked them. They even formed friendships with them. But the clear rod didn't care about that. In its eyes, all the forces of the netherworld were hidden dangers that had to die. Therefore, it decided to start with these small fries first, and at the same time, see how the war potential of this race was. At this moment, the clear rod began to move. His command rang out in the minds of many players. The players who received this order were stunned at first, but they immediately understood that the stick's true intentions had been revealed. Were they preparing to stir up trouble? However, as the clear rod waited, none of the players listened to his orders. Because at that moment, when the players looked at the clear rod, they could clearly see that there was less than 10% of the energy left inside. It was almost completely drained. Therefore, the players decided to stop pretending and lay their cards on the table. We are freeloaders, we admit it. Seeing that there was no response from the players, the spirit in the clear rod was at a loss. He thought that there was something wrong with his command, so he immediately sent another command to the players. Game notification. Receiving the thought transmission from the clear rod, indicating that you should make an action of spinning on the spot. This damage has been exempted by your soul. Hearing the game notification, a player walked to the front of the clear rod and lifted his foot to kick it. Still spinning on the spot, I've tolerated you for a long time. Tai Ching Rod. At this moment, the spirit in the clear rod was dumbfounded. He knew this player. He was very obedient before, why did he suddenly betray him? Not believing it, he tried to send another command to the player. However, what greeted him was another kick from the player. At this moment, the spirit in the clear rod was sure that the player had gotten rid of the shackles of his power of faith. Therefore, he immediately sent the command to the minds of the other players, trying to control them to kill the player on the spot. Since you've gotten rid of my control, then go to hell, the spirit in the clear rod sneered. However, what made him dumbfounded was that there were still no players who obeyed his command. Stupid, we're freeloading, ha ha. At this moment, one of the idiotic players couldn't help but laugh. Following that, the surrounding players also laughed. The spirit of the clear rod was indeed dumbfounded. And he didn't understand why the members of this race had gotten rid of the control of his faith. What he could be sure of was that every time he bestowed power to the players, he had infused it with the power of faith. Therefore, he could be sure that these players were under his control. But why did it develop like this? Unable to understand this phenomenon, the clear rod suddenly realized a problem. Could it be that they had all been pretending before, in order to deceive his trust and then obtain power from him? This thought gave him a fright. Somewhat unwilling, the spirit of the clear rod immediately sent commands to the surrounding players, trying to find the fish that had escaped its control. This time, the players reacted. They surrounded him and began to punch and kick him. Although there wasn't much effect, the players had been enduring it for a long time. After all, in order to verify whether or not the staff was controlling them, it would make them do very idiotic things from time to time, such as crawling upside down, spinning on the spot, and so on. Now that they had shed all pretense of cordiality, they had to vent it no matter what. There were even blacksmiths taking advantage of the weakened state of the clear rod to start hammering it, wanting to see if the clear rod could still withstand their hammering. But regrettably, although there wasn't much power left within the clear rod, the material it was forged from hadn't changed, and its hardness naturally didn't change either. After a round of hammering, there still wasn't a single mark left on it. At this moment, the spirit of the clear rod was both shocked and furious. It knew that it had really been tricked, and was paying a one-sided price. His actions weren't nurturing a heaven's undercover army in the underworld at all. Instead, he was helping the underworld's forces develop, and it had the opposite effect. Now that its body was almost hollowed out, and its spirit had also suffered a blow, the spirit of the clear rod was about to explode. After a mental struggle, the clear rod controlled itself to rise from the ground and fly towards the sky. At this moment, it planned to leave the underworld. Since it couldn't carry out the plan anymore, and there wasn't much energy left in its body to cultivate a new force, then leaving was the best choice. Seeing the clear rod suddenly rise from the ground and fly towards the sky, the players raised their hands in unison and raised their middle fingers, watching the clear rod fly away. Although it wasn't clear where the clear rod would fly to, it was almost drained and had no use value. As for its departure, the players only regretted that the remaining energy hadn't been drained. It was considered a loss. In the blink of an eye, the clear rod disappeared from the sight of the players. But just as it was about to penetrate the domain barrier and prepare to go to the heaven realm, a mighty force suddenly descended and hit the clear rod back. This force was very familiar to the clear rod, as the Grand Supreme had once held it and fought with the owner of this force. This person was one of the great emperors of the underworld, Fengdu. Under the pressure of this force, not only did the clear rod not penetrate the domain barrier, but it was also hit back. This hit made the spirit of the clear rod dizzy, and it couldn't even recognize the directions as it fell straight down rapidly. West of the Void Ocean, in the direction of the Star Cloud Ocean. The reason why this ocean was called the Star Cloud Ocean was because there were countless glowing spherical aquatic plants growing in the ocean. Whenever night fell, the entire ocean was like a sea of stars, shining with different starlight. At this moment, near the Star Cloud Ocean, Dr. Hai was looking at the man in black armor with a solemn expression. After some hesitation, Dr. Hai finally spoke. "Boss, give me another chance. I really want to join the alliance of evil men. Don't worry, I won't have any more problems." Looking at the solemn Dr. Hai in front of him, the man in black armor had a look of despair on his face. "Give me another chance too. We'll mind our own business. Can you let me go?" He was really helpless against Dr. Hai. Although he had the strength of a demigod, no matter how he tried to kill Dr. Hai, it would always be disintegrated by various inexplicable events. In the end, he would be the one to suffer. Therefore, he couldn't beat Dr. Hai. He could only try to persuade Dr. Hai to give up being a villain. However, Dr. Hai didn't listen to his persuasion at all. He was determined to join the alliance of evil men. He was extremely stubborn and didn't know what to do. His heart was filled with despair at this. This was because Dr. Hai had caused him immeasurable losses. As long as Dr. Hai was present in every sabotage operation, he would definitely fail and suffer heavy losses. If this goes on, I really want to be a good person. It's not easy to be a bad person. Boss, I admit that I was wrong back then. However, I've repented. I promise I won't make the same mistake again. Otherwise, you can expel me from the alliance of evil men. Hearing this, the leader of the alliance of evil men couldn't help but facepalm. If he could expel Dr. Hai, he would have done so long ago. He didn't believe a single word of Dr. Hai's words. Boss, I swear that if you guys get implicated because of us again, I will leave and never come back. Really? The leader of the alliance of evil men had a doubtful look on his face. Really, I promise. At this moment, the leader of the alliance of evil men's heart softened. After all, he couldn't beat Dr. Hai or scold him. He might as well let Dr. Hai try again to make him give up completely. Although there was a 99.9% chance that Dr. Hai would fail the next time he joined the alliance of evil men, he still clenched his teeth and decided to go all out. In order to persuade Dr. Hai to give up, he gritted his teeth and decided to go all out. Dr. Hai, you said it yourself. If you go back on your words, you'll be a grandson. I agree to let you rejoin the alliance of evil men. Thank you, boss. At this moment, a smile appeared on Dr. Hai's face. He knew that his hard work had paid off. At this moment, there was a loud explosion in the sky. The two of them immediately looked up and saw a meteor falling from the sky. It was heading toward the east of the area they were in. He could also vaguely see a greenish-silver rod in the middle of the burning meteor. Boom! With a loud sound, an island in the distance was blown into pieces at this moment, and rubble flew everywhere. F***CK, boss, our headquarters has been blown up. Dr. Hai let out a cry of alarm. At this moment, the leader of the alliance of evil men couldn't help but cover his face. He didn't expect Dr. Hai's karmic attack to arrive so quickly. Now, his entire faction is gone. All my hard work has gone up in smoke. What sin did I commit to invite you to join the alliance of evil men? Chapter 727. Dr. Hai, who was protected by the golden wheel of nether virtue, had formed a karmic connection with the evil alliance the moment the leader of the evil alliance agreed to let him join. Although the leader of the evil alliance was aware of this, he still underestimated Dr. Hai's power. This was the last chance he would give Dr. Hai, and Dr. Hai did not disappoint him. He firmly grasped this opportunity and killed the evil alliance in one blow. He uprooted the organization that he had painstakingly built and even blew up the island. It was as if this was to prevent him from making a comeback. At this moment, the leader of the evil alliance was so angry that he did not want to speak. At this moment, Dr. Hai looked at the leader of the evil alliance with a grave expression and suggested, "Boss, the base is gone. Should we build a new organization?" When the leader of the evil alliance heard this, he looked at Dr. Hai expressionlessly. Seeing that his boss was not saying a word, Dr. Hai thought for a while and continued, "Boss, you have to pull yourself together. Boss, you have to pull yourself together. I didn't expect such a tragedy to happen. Now that the brothers in the base have been sacrificed, we should be even stronger, establish a new force, take over the goal that the brothers have been fighting for all their lives, and work hard." Hearing this, the leader of the evil alliance trembled and looked at Dr. Hai with a complicated expression. "How on earth did you not know what was going on? You did not expect such a tragedy to happen? I did not even King expect it. How could I be so stubborn as to agree to let you join?" At this moment, he did not want to speak. He felt that if he said too much, his life might be locked by karma and he would be punished. Therefore, he silently turned around, levitated into the air, and flew towards the south. "Boss, where are you going?" Dr. High asked anxiously when he saw this. "I just want to be AF*, King Good Person." A sorrowful roar came from afar. Dr. High was speechless. Dr. High sighed as he looked at his former boss, who was getting further and further away. "When you first recruited me, you said that you would lead us to build the largest evil alliance. Now, you have fallen because of a small setback. I really misjudged you." After lamenting, Dr. High turned his gaze to the island that had been torn apart. At this moment, he was very curious and wanted to know what had blown up the base of the evil alliance. At that time, he had vaguely seen a stick-like object in the meteor. However, because it was too fast, he could not see it clearly. Therefore, he flew toward the island that had already broken apart in the distance. After a careful search, Dr. High found a greenish-silver stick in the rubble. Seeing this object, Hai Daofu revealed a puzzled expression. After carefully examining it, he pulled it out of the rubble pile. In the instant that Hai Daofu came into contact with the clear Qi rod, the artifact spirit within the clear Qi rod sensed it, instantly awakening from its dazed state. As its consciousness spread out, Dr. Hai's figure appeared in front of it. At this time, the clear Qi rod's artifact spirit had already realized one thing. Unless his master came to pick him up, it would be impossible for him to leave the underworld, because the great emperors of the underworld were monitoring him. At this moment, the artifact spirit felt extremely sad. Thinking back to the shameless race he had encountered before, the grand pure rod couldn't help but lament in his heart. "It's too difficult for me. I'm bearing pressure that a weapon shouldn't have." As for where it should go next, the artifact spirit of the clear Qi staff had no idea. At this moment, looking at Dr. High, who was observing him curiously, the Tai Ching rod fell into deep thought and began to plan for the future. At this moment, Dr. High also looked at the Tai Ching rod and gradually fell into deep thought. Because he didn't know where he should go, and it seemed like he was homeless again, a man and a rod floated on the sea and began to stare blankly. After a while, the artifact spirit within the Tai Ching rod suddenly woke up, because it discovered that its remaining source of power was rapidly evaporating. It immediately began to investigate the reason. After a while, it was horrified to discover that all of this was caused by the man carrying a tortoise shell beside him. From Hai Daofu, the Tai Ching rod's artifact spirit sensed a strong aura of Yin virtue. As one of the most extreme source of power in the underworld, Yin virtue was the complete opposite of the heavenly Tao realm lake water contained within the Tai Ching rod. At this moment, because it was too close to Dr. Hai, its internal source of power began to decrease. At this moment, the Tai Ching rod had the intention to kill Dr. Hai. With the protection of Yin virtue, you can't be left alive. Thinking of this, the Tai Ching rod's artifact spirit immediately activated the rod's body and ruthlessly swept towards Dr. Hai's head. At this moment, an accident happened. The space in front suddenly tore apart, and a beam of light shot out from within, coincidentally sweeping the surface of the Tai Ching rod. Indistinctly, an angry roar could be heard from within the spatial crack. "Great quietus!" Following that, the sound of weapons clashing could be heard. Clearly, this was a battle that was happening in another region of the underworld. Coincidentally, one of the spatial cracks that were torn apart appeared in front of Dr. Hai. Thus, the rod was tragically knocked to the ground, trembling incessantly. The indignant Tai Ching rod immediately circulated its internal energy and smashed towards Dr. Hai once again. Great quietus! Boom! The Tai Ching rod was once again repelled by the energy that emerged from within. At this moment, the Tai Ching rod suddenly recalled that this wasn't its home ground. The guy with the protection of Yin virtue was definitely protected by the entire underworld. It couldn't do anything to him. At this moment, there wasn't much energy left in the rod, even less than 3% of its original strength. Realizing this, the Tai Ching rod immediately wanted to leave. Otherwise, if it stayed here, the internal energy would definitely be dissipated by Dr. Hai, who had the protection of Yin virtue. When that happened, it would no longer be able to control the Tai Ching rod. Thinking of this, the Tai Ching rod immediately floated into the air and shot into the distance. At this moment, a beam of light appeared from the spatial crack that had yet to close, striking towards the Tai Ching rod that was flying into the air. Great quietus! Before the Tai Ching rod could fly far, it trembled and fell into the water. At this moment, the Tai Ching rod's weapon spirit was filled with despair. If you want to fight, then fight. Can't you take care of the space? Even if you don't take care of the space, what's the point of bullying me? What great quietus! If I was at my peak, I would definitely follow the spatial crack and smash your head, giving you a great quietus. However, at this moment, the remaining energy was already less than 3%. The Tai Ching rod didn't dare to delay. After stabilizing its body, it once again shot into the distance. Because if it didn't leave Dr. Hai, it would fall into a deep sleep. Great quietus! A beam of light shot out from the spatial crack that was about to close. Tai Ching rod. #yen% and asterisk. After being swept into the water this time, the Tai Ching rod's weapon spirit scolded loudly. But as it scolded, it started crying. At this moment, it suffered consecutive setbacks, causing the weapon spirit's young heart to suffer heavy damage. Being a rod was 2F** king hard. Master didn't come to pick it up after a long time. Master's plan to nurture a spy was also ruined. Now it was being bullied, too difficult. I don't want to be a rod anymore. The Tai Ching rod's weapon spirit produced an extremely negative emotion. Feeling the continuous loss of its internal energy source, it knew that it was about to fall into a deep sleep. As for when it would wake up, it wasn't clear. It could be 100 years, or 1,000 years, or even 1,000,000 years. The Tai Ching rod's weapon spirit became sadder the more it thought about it. At this moment, Dr. Hai, who had been watching the whole process, was stunned. After a while, he couldn't help but laugh. This rod isn't simple. His luck is really good, getting hit 3 times in a row. Ah! Hearing Dr. Hai's laughter, the Tai Ching rod's weapon spirit cried even more fiercely. Chapter 728. Perhaps it would die if it absorbed this power, but it no longer cared. After an unknown amount of time had passed, the sobbing artifact spirit of the clear chi staff suddenly sensed what seemed to be an unfamiliar energy within the darkness. In fact, Dr. Hai had already discovered that the rod wasn't simple. The artifact spirit of the clear chi staff. Yet, at this moment, the internal injuries had crushed the heart of the artifact spirit of the clear chi staff. At that time, he wouldn't even be able to extend his consciousness out of the staff and would be completely imprisoned. Although the remaining 1% of energy could guarantee its consumption for at least 1,000 years, everything would be useless if it could not do without Dr. Hai. Dr. Hai had been coveting this force for a long time. However, he knew that the leader of that force would not be interested in his Ghost Emperor realm strength. At this moment, it suddenly woke up with a start. He didn't have the slightest thought of agreeing. "I'm not willing." At this moment, Dr. Hai gave his reply. At this moment, it couldn't hear or see, as if it was isolated from the world. "Bring me to meet him, but I probably won't agree." At this moment, the Grand Pure Rod even had the thought of dying. Looking at Dr. Hai, who had given him a new life, the clear Chi Rod's artifact spirit felt a surge of warmth in his heart. Therefore, no matter if it was the merits of the Heaven Realm or the Yin Realm, the Tai Ching Rod could absorb them and use them as a source of power. However, when the Grand Elder found out that it was nurturing the venerable Devil Ape, he refused to allow it to return and signaled it to continue nurturing the venerable Devil Ape. Rather than waiting in the darkness to recover, it was better to fight with his life on the line. In the darkness, the artifact spirit's mind kept replaying the past. It shivered and curled up in a dark corner, crying silently. Thinking of this, the artifact spirit of the clear chi staff chose to come into contact with this power of darkness, and began to greedily absorb it. Alright, let's go. Our target is the Starry Sky Islands. Hearing that Rod had agreed to meet the leader of the Shadow Army with him, Dr. Hai was delighted. Recently, a super evil force appeared in the direction of the Starry Sea area. They called themselves the Shadow Army and had a bunch of God Realm experts under them. What kind of *T weapon is this? I can shatter 100 of them with a single strike. Seeing the golden scepter, the clear sky staff's artifact spirit was flustered and exasperated. And it knew that the darkness would last for a long, long time. Such days were just beginning, but it quickly chose to give up. When Dr. Hai heard this, he took out a golden scepter. It felt as if he was locked in a prison that he could not escape from. Why? Do you know how powerful I am? At this moment, a crack appeared in its determination to serve the heaven realm, and it continued to expand. Stupid stick, you flew in the wrong direction. By the way, how about I help you find a master? At this time, Dr. Hai suddenly said with a look of anticipation. At this moment, if it could, it was even willing to choose death. What the Tai Ching rod didn't know was that its own attribute didn't conflict with Yin virtue at all, because it was forged from holy spiritual force. P.S. The Holy Spirit energy was mentioned before. When the world was created, it was the world source energy that was allocated to the 6 paths and the heavenly Tao when the 3 realms were created. But there was nothing it could do now. It could only wait for the moment when it would wake up. Hearing this, the artifact spirit of the clear chi staff could not help but roll its eyes. I don't care what ability you have. I already have a weapon, Dr. Hai said indifferently. Artifact spirit, listen to my advice. As the saying goes, a good horse needs a good saddle. A divine artifact like you naturally needs a powerful leader to control it. The master I found for you this time will definitely satisfy you, Dr. Hai said patiently. At this moment, the artifact spirit fell into a mental struggle. Since the moment it was born, it had never feared any external power. After all, they couldn't destroy it. Are you willing to become my new master? At this time, the artifact spirit asked again. Its heart was filled with anticipation. Like a deep breath before drowning, it was filled with nostalgia for this world. But now that it knew that the Tai Ching rod was looking for a master, it knew that its chance had come. But it had waited for far too long. During this period, it had contacted with the Grand Supreme several times. Since that was the case, this time, in order to survive, it had to make its own choice. That's right. The artifact spirit immediately replied. Hearing this, the artifact spirit in the Tai Ching rod could not help but roll its eyes. Thinking of this, the artifact spirit extended its consciousness and looked at Dr. Hai. The birth of an artifact spirit and the birth of consciousness were 2 completely different concepts. The birth of consciousness meant that it could understand its master's words and carry out tasks according to its master's instructions. However, the birth of an artifact spirit was equivalent to the birth of a new life. Currently, the Tai Ching rod's artifact spirit felt that there wasn't much energy left in its body. It was like a human from 300 years ago who saw a phone with less than 1% battery and felt extremely sad. But thinking of how it had to stay by Hai Dafu's side and absorb the power of Yin virtue that was dissipating from Dr. Hai's body, it finally said, I don't believe it. Take it out and take a look. It carefully sensed this seemingly untouchable energy, trying to find traces of it. Dr. Hai in the outside world burst into laughter. I don't care if I don't have this master. This kind of environment made it feel afraid. Facing the impending silence, the Tai Ching rod's artifact spirit was terrified and cried silently. It had thought that with the protection of Yin virtue, it would be a big shot in the underworld. It did not expect that it would be compared to an extremely ordinary scepter. How infuriating! After all, it was able to come out unscathed after exploding an island from the sky. After that, it was even hit by an expert who tore through space 3 times in a row without leaving a single scar. It could be seen that this rod was extremely extraordinary, but in the depths of its heart, it was constantly thinking about going home. This was AF * King Country Bumpkin. When the time came, it would gift this divine rod to the leader of that force. It would definitely be able to blend in and become a great villain of its dreams. What appeared in front of it was Dr. Hai, who was using his teeth to gnaw on the rod. He seemed to be measuring the material of the Tai Ching rod, but the method was slightly rough. So when he heard the voice in his head admitting that he was the artifact spirit, Dr. Hai was truly stunned. Thinking of this, Dr. Hai laughed out loud. At this moment, Dr. Hai suddenly thought of where he should go next. Why does it still have energy? Wasn't it exhausted? Although it knew that it was an artifact spirit, it had its own thoughts, judgment, and feelings. No, I know a great villain. He has many experts under him. If you mix with him, you will definitely be glorious. Much better than you. Although I hate the underworld, I still want to take a look at it now. Spatial cracks were not something that could be easily encountered. After all, the underworld was extremely vast. Even if it was a spatial crack created during a battle, the probability of it appearing in front of them was extremely low. Even many creatures that had lived for tens of thousands of years had not encountered it even once. What do you know? This scepter is the Dark Ocean King's scepter left behind by the Empress. I only need this for my entire life. At this moment, his originally gloomy mood had completely disappeared. This scene made him feel that it was really fun. Aren't you flying too slowly? As Dr. Hai approached, the energy consumption became even faster. In this life, Dr. Hai had seen many artifacts that had developed their own consciousness. However, this was the first time he saw an artifact spirit. If he tried to escape, the artifact spirit might be depleted by the new karma strike that appeared. Previously in the second realm, when he saw Dong Wang Tai appear, the artifact spirit in the Tai Ching rod thought that he would be taken away. He did not expect to be abandoned in the end. A tender voice suddenly rang in his head, giving Dr. Hai a fright. He immediately looked around, trying to find the source of the voice. However, the artifact spirit in the Tai Ching rod had already given up struggling. This is already my fastest speed. It's me, the rod in your hand, the artifact spirit said unhappily. This was the first time it had experienced darkness. Immediately after, it gripped the rod tightly, floated into the air, and flew into the distance. Although he knew that his luck was indeed a little bit good, Dr. Hai was unable to digest the fact that the artifact had taken the initiative to throw itself into his arms. That was why he was trying to figure out what material the stick was made of. Let me bring you to experience extreme speed. Hold it tight. Your weapon can compare to mine. The artifact spirit seemed very surprised. The more it thought about it, the more indignant it became. It felt that becoming an artifact spirit was a kind of sorrow. It did not have its own life journey, and everything was under the control of others. Since I've decided to make my own choice this time, then it should be up to me to decide who its master is. The source of its power came from the Pond of Virtue in the Heavenly Realm's Heavenly Tao realm, also known as the Lake of Virtue. If it absorbed this completely opposite power of Yin Virtue, the rod might not be able to withstand it. Oh my, the rod has spoken. Could it be the artifact spirit? Dr. Hai was very surprised. The artifact spirit could think on its own, and also possessed emotions that only a normal life would have. At this moment, the darkness in front of the Tai Ching rod was gradually dispelled. The artifact spirit of the Tai Ching rod chose to carry out the order given by the Tai Ching, whom it regarded as its father. Can this power be absorbed? The artifact spirit in the Tai Ching rod had this thought. If it really had to stay in the rod for a long time, it would definitely be a kind of torture. I'll ask you again, are you willing to become my new master? Moreover, using Yin Virtue as the source of power, wasn't it betrayal? At this moment, the energy source was already less than 1%. You're too miserable. Dr. Hai approached the Tai Ching rod with a smile, and reached out to knock it twice. However, he did not expect that the rod would actually give birth to an artifact spirit. From the moment its fate began, it was controlled by the Tai Ching rod, and it had always regarded the Tai Ching rod as its father. As Hai Dafu curiously sized it up, the energy within the Tai Ching rod was completely exhausted, and the lively world in front of the artifact spirit was enveloped by darkness. Everything in the outside world could no longer connect with it. You're too direct, aren't you? Are all artifacts so unrestrained? Dr. Hai was stunned. This time, not only did he encounter it, but he also saw the rod being hit by the energy from the other side of the spatial crack 3 times. It was the same for the artifact spirit in the Tai Ching rod. When its energy was completely exhausted, although its consciousness would not dissipate, it would no longer be able to control the Tai Ching rod. In the end, he discovered that the essence of this energy was actually the yin virtue aura of the man in the outside world. The most important thing was that there was no place to charge it, and the moment the power was cut off, it was as if it had been abandoned by the world. Do I even want to have a master? Do you think I'm a cabbage? He had to stay there for a very long time. It could be said that the strong dragon suppresses the local snake, and when it passed through, it plundered many forces. In Dr. Hai's opinion, it could be called a super evil force. Are you willing to become my master? Chapter 729. Starry Sky Sea, Central Islands. Not only had this area not been occupied by any faction during the long battles of the sea domain, but it had also become a buffer zone between the various factions. There were a total of 27 islands, and each island had a different purpose. Most of the islands were used to trade goods between the various forces, and some of the islands were used to build entertainment facilities, such as pubs, arenas, and so on. This place could be considered a pure land amidst the cruel competition in the Starry Sea region. But even so, this place wasn't without danger. Due to the lack of order, battles often broke out here, and one's own strength was also the most important guarantee. Moreover, due to the large amount of wealth gathered here, there would always be forces who would risk being besieged by other major forces to come and plunder. For example, not long ago, the Evil Men Alliance had brought a large army over and captured 3 islands, taking away a large amount of wealth. Recently, the most eye-catching event in the Starry Sky Islands was the new force that came from the direction of the Void Ocean. Shadow Army. This force could be said to be arrogant. Ever since he stepped into the Starry Heavens Sea region, he had plundered along the way, suppressing several extremely powerful factions in this sea region and sweeping away their wealth. It wasn't that the major forces of the Starry Sea region hadn't thought of joining forces to expel this new force. However, after learning about the Shadow Army in detail and knowing that there were a large number of God State experts in this force, they became listless. This was a completely unequal power, and going against it was simply courting death. Therefore, other than cursing in their hearts, there was nothing they could do. In fact, the major forces of the Starry Sea region did not understand why such a powerful force did not enter the Central Sea region to compete for the most precious divine spiritual materials. Instead, they came to the Starry Sea region. But they didn't dare to ask. Currently, the place where the Shadow Corps was stationed was the archipelago in the central region of the Starry Sky Sea region. At this moment, on the inner island of the Starry Sky archipelago, the Sea King was looking at his wine glass with a melancholy expression. Bitterness filled his heart. He had been on the run for 2 months, traversing the void from the Kuelong Ocean and finally arriving at the Starry Ocean. Although the forces of the Yellow Springs headquarters had yet to catch up to him, he was still extremely worried. Even though he knew that his life was tough and that he had managed to escape several life and death crises, he didn't care. However, this crisis couldn't be resolved just by avoiding it. After all, if they angered the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce, there would definitely be a lot of trouble in the future. Everything was just the beginning. Besides resting during the journey, the most important thing for them to be stationed at the Starry Sky Islands this time was to resupply. Soon, they would have to start their journey once again. They would have to flee to the outer seas and find a land to land on. After all, the Underworld Merchant Guild's influence on land would be greatly reduced. In fact, when he was at the west of the Void Ocean, he wanted to log into the land of Tsangshu. However, he was stunned when he encountered the player clan again. At that time, a conflict almost broke out, but he managed to stop it in time. After that, he chose to leave Tsangshu dejectedly and continued heading west. Just like that, they arrived at the Starry Sea region. The Sea King was very confused about the future. After witnessing the power of the Underworld Chamber of Commerce, he felt that it was unrealistic to think that he could contend against them. After all, the difference in strength was too great. Even if he was allowed to develop steadily for tens of thousands of years, there was no hope unless a great opportunity appeared. This was also the reason why the Sea King was so depressed at the moment. After all, since they had already offended each other, the grudge would definitely end with one side being annihilated. However, no matter how he looked at it, the chances of him being annihilated were higher. The chances of him winning were less than 0.1% or even lower. Just when the Sea King was planning his future, Sha Shui walked into his room and said respectfully, "My king, there's someone outside asking to see you. He said that he wants to give you a peerless godly instrument." Upon hearing this, the Sea King frowned slightly. "Call me boss from now on. I'm not a king anymore. Also, call that person in." Sha Shui nodded respectfully and left the Sea King's room. After a while, under Sha Shui's lead, Dr. Hai entered the Sea King's room with the Tai Ching rod. Seeing the Sea King, Dr. Hai said in a friendly manner, "Boss, I want to join the organization." The Sea King. Looking at Dr. Hai, the Sea King was dumbfounded. Moreover, he realized that Dr. Hai looked very familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere before. After thinking for a while, he took out a small booklet and started flipping through it. After a while, the Sea King found out why Dr. Hai looked familiar. On one of the pages of the booklet was a portrait of Dr. Hai, and there was a paragraph of text. Dr. Hai, character introduction. Eunuch Hai with the protection of nether virtue, possesses the superpower of karmic strike. Countless players have died in his hands, and he specializes in dealing with evildoers. The details are as follows. Character note: extremely dangerous, must not be provoked. Restraining method: harmless to good people, such as the White Phantom and the Wood Spirit clan. The booklet in the Sea King's hand was given to him by the players. On the cover were the words "Sea Wall Cheat List" written in crooked handwriting. After He Sui left the Liuli coast, the players wanted the Sea King to develop better. An enthusiastic player extracted some posts from the forum and summarized them into a book called Sea Wall Cheat List. He asked He Sui to pass it to the Sea King. Other than Dr. Hai, there were many characters that the Sea King was familiar with and unfamiliar with. However, the Sea King's understanding of them was relatively superficial, while the players had a deeper understanding of these characters through the analysis menu. This booklet was a parting gift from the players to the Sea King. It was a symbol of the players' hope that the leaks would grow quickly. After taking a look at the portrait on the page, and then at Dr. Hai, the Sea King confirmed that this person was the Dr. Hai described in the booklet. At this moment, he was stunned. To the Sea King, nether virtue was a very mysterious thing. Anyway, he had never seen it in his life. After reading the dense pages of deeds under Dr. Hai's character introduction, he felt guilty. The nemesis of evildoers? Am I considered an evildoer? After thinking about it, the Sea King had to admit a terrifying fact. He was King evildoer. After all, he had only done bad things in his life and had never done anything good. It was even more so during the early stages of his growth. He had annihilated several clans in the sea and incorporated their clansmen. The Sea King believed that the players would not lie to him, so he looked at Dr. High guiltily. He really could not afford to offend this guy. Dr. High might not be as strong as him, but he had the protection of nether virtue and had the capital to be reckless. Boss, please let me join the organization. I want to follow you and become a great evildoer, Dr. High said with anticipation. The Sea King was speechless. As a great philanthropist with the protection of nether virtue, are you serious? Don't you know what you're doing? Of course, the Sea King did not dare to agree to this request. Otherwise, he would have a long life. After all, the Sea King had already confirmed that he was an evildoer. If he were to establish a karmic connection with Dr. High, the underworld chamber of commerce's army would arrive at any moment. Then, the entire army would be annihilated on the spot. The Sea King shivered at the thought of this and looked at Dr. High with fear in his eyes. I'm a good person, the Sea King said with a red face. Dr. High was dumbfounded when he heard this. Listen, is this something that a great evildoer in my eyes can say? I think you can be an evildoer. Dr. High could not help but say. But I'm really a good person. The Sea King tried to struggle. At this moment, Sui rushed into the Sea King's room and reported in a panic, Boss, the 2nd Division's campsite is on fire. We can't put it out no matter how hard we try. Many spiritual materials have been burned. The Sea King could not help but cover his face when he heard this. We haven't even established a relationship yet, and the karmic attack is already here. Isn't this a little too fast? Let me get ready. At this moment, a few more figures rushed into the Sea King's room. Boss, the island where the 3rd Division's campsite is experiencing an earthquake. Boss, a soldier in the 5th Division's campsite has gone berserk and started a massacre. Boss, a soldier in the Shadow Legion disappeared on the spot because he did not replenish his soul-praying fluid in time. The Sea King was dumbfounded when he heard his subordinates report. He cursed white magic in his heart. The players did not lie to him. This fellow was indeed a malignant tumor. The Sea King trembled when he thought of the description of Dr. High in the booklet. He felt that he was in big trouble. At this moment, the Sea King did not know that Dr. High could be considered his ancestor. The Bimit Ocean Nation used to be a part of the Nether Sea Nation, and Dr. High was the king of the Nether Sea Nation for a short period of time. It was even his idea to split the Nether Sea Nation into 8 nations. Although they were not of the same lineage, he could be considered an ancestor in terms of seniority. However, because too much time had passed, the Sea King did not know Dr. High, and Dr. High did not know the Sea King. The two of them did not even know that there was such a relationship between them. At this moment, the pressure from his ancestor made the Sea King panic. Dr. High, leave quickly. My small temple cannot accommodate a great god like you. No, I've made up my mind. I will not leave until I join your organization, even if you kill me. Looking at the serious Dr. High, the Sea King wanted to cry. Aren't you a little too enlightened? Are you saying that you will not give up until I die? You're giving me a death sentence on the spot? I've even escaped the underworld chamber of commerce's pursuit. Am I going to die in your hands? I'm not willing. At this moment, the Sea King focused his mind and began to think of a countermeasure. It was definitely unreliable to kill Dr. High. After all, it was clearly written in the handbook given by the players that this guy could not be killed at all. The person who killed him would be punished by karma. However, persuasion did not seem to work. This guy looked very stubborn. At this moment, the Sea King's mood was very complicated. It was very similar to the leader of the Evil Alliance. He gritted his teeth at Dr. High, but there was nothing he could do. There was nothing he could do. At this moment, the Sea King once again flipped through the handbook given to him by the players, trying to find a way to resolve the crisis. At this moment, the Sea King's gaze suddenly focused on a sentence. Harmless to good people, such as the White Phantom, the Wood Spirit Clan, etc. Good people are harmless? Seeing this sentence marked by the players, the Sea King felt as if he was grasping at straws. He immediately shouted at Hei Sui and the others. "Hurry up and fork out some spiritual materials. We'll go and provide disaster relief. Let's see if there are any weak clans in this sea region that are starving or being oppressed by the big forces. We'll go and help them." At this moment, in the Sea King's opinion, he could only eliminate this karma by doing good deeds. When Hei Sui and the others heard this, they were dumbfounded. Looking at the ferocious expression of the Sea King, they really wanted to ask, "Boss, are you serious?" Chapter 730. You're too hypocritical. A few days ago, I saw you looting a force with my own eyes. You took away all the resources in their storage, and even smashed the head of the force's leader. After all, the path of becoming a villain was always full of thorns and challenges. This could be seen from the time when they snatched control of the 8 nations and killed the heir of the Netherworld Ocean. Before the Sea King could speak, the leading Wood Crab clan elder raised a bag of fruits in his hand and knelt in front of the Sea King. Hei Sui had already organized the army outside. The Sea King told him again. All of this made the Sea King feel that all his efforts were worth it. The Wood Crab clan members were left dumbfounded. If the Sea King said that they were going to loot spiritual materials from other forces, they would think it was reasonable. However, they were confused when they heard that the Sea King was going to provide disaster relief. The Sea King had already thought of a way to deal with the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. The Sea King was speechless. However, how could the Sea King let him go at this point? This was the little food they had left. There was nothing left to pay tribute to the powerful forces. All right. As the number of good deeds increased, the Sea King was delighted to find that there were no more warships damaged or sudden crises. Following the Sea King's order, the legions boarded the warships and sailed to the nearby sea area. At this moment, the Sea King felt very tired. He suddenly felt that it was difficult to be a good person. Next, in order to get rid of the karmic connection with Dr. Hai, the Sea King would do good deeds wherever he went. What the Sea King did not know was that Dr. Hai had already helped them through a life-and-death crisis during their journey of doing good deeds. During this period, he even stopped a sea war and forcefully dragged the leaders of the 2 warring forces to sit down and negotiate. At this moment, Hei Sui gathered his courage and looked at the Sea King. "I despise your rotten fruits even if they are delivered to my mouth." The Sea King turned around and was shocked to find black smoke rising from warship number 3. It was obvious that there was an internal explosion. Therefore, he found the Sea King and expressed his intention to leave. However, thinking of Dr. Hai, the Sea King quickly helped the Wood Crab clan leader up from the ground. He then took a bag of spiritual materials from Hei Sui and handed it to the Wood Crab clan leader. Of course, the Wood Crab patriarch naturally didn't dare speak of all of this, and he hurriedly led the clansmen behind him to kneel on the ground and kowtow repeatedly. In their minds, although the Sea King treated his own people well, he had always been a ruthless and decisive person. Now, he actually said that he wanted to go to disaster relief. "We're going to do charity. Do you want to come with us?" He didn't take any tributes, but instead gave him spiritual materials. How did this expert establish such a huge force? So he forced a smile on his face. Seeing this scene, the Sea King was so frightened that he almost knelt down. However, the Sea King was clear that he would never be able to do evil again. Following the information provided by Hei Sui, the Sea King led the army to a dilapidated reef beach. He immediately signaled Hei Sui and the others to help the Wood Crab clansmen up. After seeing the huge fleet led by the Sea King, the Wood Crab tribesmen trembled, but they did not choose to hide. Instead, they walked shakily towards the docked battleship. "Didn't you hear what I said? Hurry up and fork out some of the spiritual materials. Let's set off for disaster relief." The Sea King roared angrily. "Do I look that scary? Old patriarch, it must have been difficult recently, right?" Hearing this, Dr. Hai was completely tempted. In this regard, the Sea King had already thought of a countermeasure. he told Dr. Hai in a sincere and earnest manner. He felt that he had joined a fake evil force. It was too hypocritical and did not match his dreams. At this moment, the Sea King was overjoyed. He knew that he now had the greatest trump card against the underworld Chamber of Commerce. As the battleship approached the reef beach, when the Sea King first arrived at the Starry Sky Sea region, he had come here before. He had also discovered the Wood Crab clan, a declining clan that lived here. There were less than 100 clansmen, and they belonged to the bottom of the sea region's forces. If you want to kill me in the future, you'll have to step over Dr. Hai's corpse first. My battleships are so expensive. Looking at the fake smile on the Sea King's face, the Wood Crab tribe leader felt that the Sea King's brain was probably damaged. Everything was for the sake of living. The Sea King quickly took a step forward and tried to help the Wood Crab clan leader to stand up. At that moment, the Wood Crab clan leader was so frightened that his body leaned backward, and his face was full of fear. The Sea King, Yellow Springs headquarters. If King saw it. After another round of comforting and flattering words, the Sea King quickly led his troops away from this reef beach and headed towards their next destination. In the Sea King's eyes, Dr. Hai was a life-saving straw. Since he was already here, it was impossible for him to leave. However, in the Sea King's eyes, this clan was a life-saving straw that could free him from Dr. Hai's karmic punishment. In the following days, the Sea King led his subordinates to wander around the Starry Sky Sea region. However, he had seen the Sea King's evil deeds with his own eyes, so he chose to remain calm. Boom. After half a month of sailing, the Sea King had lost a total of more than 20 battleships, but he had helped more than 40 clans get through the crisis. He had also provided a large gift bag of spiritual materials for growth. Without the threat of death, the Sea King was elated. It was also at this time that Dr. Hai offered the Tai Ching rod to his boss, the Sea King. He had finally gotten rid of Dr. Hai's karmic punishment. You don't understand this now because you haven't become an evil person. Follow me and learn more so that you can realize your dreams in the future. From now on, the Underworld Chamber of Commerce would no longer be able to threaten him. At this moment, the Sea King was the first to lose his cool. However, since he had already made up his mind, he did not dawdle and immediately left with Dr. Hai. To prevent further losses, the Sea King immediately roared at the Wood Crab clan leader, "Don't move!" However, Dr. Hai was the first to lose his cool. This time, the Sea King felt that the player clan had saved him again. Do I look like a bad person who came to collect tributes? Thinking of this, Dr. Hai grinned. After receiving the spiritual materials, the Wood Crab clan leader was dumbfounded. Hei Sui and the others were dumbfounded when they heard the Sea King suddenly say that he was going to provide disaster relief. Thinking of how he had personally witnessed the Sea King plundering the major clans in the Starry Sky region, he suddenly believed him. At this moment of life and death, how could I not be serious? This must be a test for me. I have to stay calm. That was to make Dr. Hai, who was protected by the Nether Virtue, stay on the ship and tie him up. In the future, if the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce wanted to punish him, they would definitely meet Dr. Hai. With his Nether Virtue protecting him, the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce would not be able to kill him. I know that your days are tough. Take this bag of spiritual materials, train more powerful clansmen, and live a good life. Look for me if you have any difficulties in the future. Remember, I'm the Sea King. If anyone bullies you in the future, use my name. If it's not working, look for me. I'll protect you. The Sea King's constant acts of kindness even made him feel that he was a good person. Along the way, the Sea King's warships frequently broke down or were destroyed. Since there was no profit to be made, the Sea King did not care about this clan when he passed by. He only had an impression of Hei Sui, who was in charge of the voyage records. Listen, is this something a great evil person would say? Boss, 3 warships are suddenly leaking. They seem to be sinking. At this moment, Lan Hushan's shout came from the warship behind. Is the karmic punishment coming just like that? Why did we become great evildoers? It's to plunder spiritual materials and precious resources. What we're doing now is casting a long line to catch a big fish. We'll raise them first, and when they grow up, we'll reap a huge harvest in one go. This is the long-term vision a great evil person should have. Forget it, let's report the situation to the higher-ups first and give up on this mission for the time being. Dr. Hai was speechless. Hearing this, Hai Dafu resisted and chose to reject it. He told the Sea King that this was not the path he wanted to take. Dr. Hai was intimidated by his words. He was a double-edged sword. The consequence of doing evil was to first be punished by Dr. Hai's karmic punishment. Hence, it was better for him to be a good person in the future. After He Sui and the others left, the Sea King turned to look at Dr. Hai, who was still in a daze. They knew that there was no use in hiding when faced with such a powerful force. Instead, they would anger this force and die a worse death. Although He Sui and the others were dumbfounded, they decisively turned around and arranged the matters according to the Sea King's orders. Although the continuous loss of spiritual materials made the Sea King's heart ache, he could only grit his teeth and continue doing good until Dr. Hai's karmic punishment was broken. Realizing that this could really save him, the Sea King's heart to do good became even more fervent. He chose to join the Sea King's camp without hesitation. Accompanied by the Sea King's roar, an explosion sounded in the distance. I'm not sure. Every time the space is torn, it becomes very unstable. It's impossible to reach the Starry Sea. Facing the Sea King's despotic power, the leaders of the two forces were frightened and immediately promised not to attack each other. What do we do now? How do we go to the Starry Sea to kill the target force? However, he still chose to keep his cool. This was definitely a test. He had to roar at the sight of injustice. Otherwise, Dr. Hai would be the first to not let him off. Boss, battleship number 3 has exploded. The Wood Crab clan members inside were alarmed and popped their heads out. After living for hundreds of years, this was the first time he encountered such a ridiculous thing. Dr. Hai, who was accompanying him, began to doubt his life. He felt that something was wrong with this test. Everything was for the sake of survival. While they were waiting, the Sea King, He Sui, and the others disembarked with bags of spiritual materials and resources. He felt like he was dreaming. This was too fake. Be a philanthropist. Looking at the Wood Crab clan's leader who was still kneeling on the ground, the Sea King wanted to cry. He decided not to be fierce and speak nicely. However, with the accumulation of good deeds, the Sea King realized that the frequency of karmic punishment was obviously lower. Seeing this, the Sea King was stunned. However, on the bright side, he might be able to accumulate merits and obtain the ability to protect himself. Therefore, the Sea King immediately agreed to let Dr. Hai join his organization. If you don't have money or resources, I'll give it to you. Only then did the Sea King let them go. I know you won't be interested in these fruits. Next year, we'll definitely pick more spiritual materials. By then, you'll definitely be satisfied. The Wood Crab clan's leader's wrinkled face was filled with fear. He was so scared that he almost cried. Hearing this, the Sea King shivered. Dr. Hai, who saw everything, fell into a state of doubting his life again. Boss, are you serious? What's going on? How many times has it been? Why can't I pass? Chapter 731. In the past, I had a choice, so I became an evil person. But now I have no choice, so I can only be a good person. This was the Sea King's current situation. This force, which had recently arrived in the new Starry Sky Sea region, was originally a vicious plundering organization in the eyes of the local forces. They were terrified, afraid of being targeted, and at the same time, they were prepared to take precautions. However, after this force plundered several local forces, they were puzzled by what they did next. They began to root out the strong and help the weak in this sea region, and gave their resources to the poor forces in bulk. What's more, as long as there was a fight in the sea region and this force knew about it, they would definitely intervene. They would talk to the leaders of the two warring forces, and they would not let them leave until they were satisfied. Such a move made all the major forces a little confused. Can't the weak be eaten by the strong? Even if you don't like it, don't stop us. We have the dream of going to the Central Sea region. Aren't you killing our dreams by doing this? Yes, the Sea King was killing all fights, and doing good deeds to the end. All attacks, plundering, and wars were not allowed by the Sea King. At this time, the Sea King had become a police force that maintained law and order in the Starry Sky Sea region. As long as someone made a mistake, they had to intervene, whether they were willing or not. Under the Sea King's iron fist, the Starry Sky Sea region was peaceful, and no forces dared to cause trouble. Although they were sullen, there was nothing they could do. Who asked them to be unable to compete with the Sea King's forces? During this period, Dr. Hai put in a lot of effort. Since he did not have any psychological burden and did not think that he was doing evil, he put in a lot of effort every time. Every time he finished doing good deeds, Dr. Hai would smile with an intoxicated look on his face. His heart was filled with joy. The Sea King was speechless about this. He did not understand why this guy dreamed of being an evil person when he clearly loved doing good deed. Did he get kicked in the head? However, during this period there was another thing that made the Sea King very happy. It was because he had obtained a stick. This stick had always been in Dr. Hai's hands, and he did not care about it at all. However, after touching it, he found out that there was a weapon spirit inside the stick. This was enough to show the value of this rod. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was a divine artifact. After all, even gods did not necessarily have a weapon that could give birth to an artifact spirit. When Dr. Hai took the initiative to offer the rod, the Sea King did not hesitate and immediately agreed. However, what made the Sea King somewhat dissatisfied was that the artifact spirit within the Tai Ching rod did not recognize him as its master at all, but it still agreed to be used by him. As for the reason, it was naturally because the Tai Ching rod still wanted to stay by Hai Dafu's side to recharge. However, he needed a reason to stay. Now that Dr. Hai had pledged his allegiance to the Sea King and offered him to the Sea King, he agreed. However, it did not acknowledge the Sea King as its master at all, because it only lived for itself. It did not hate the Heaven Realm, but the long wait had worn out its expectations for the Heaven Realm. Countless times of expectations turned to nothing, which made it even more disgusted with the Heaven Realm, including its father, Tai Shang, who was always unwilling to let it leave the underworld. As for the underworld, it didn't hate it at all. Its previous behavior was only because it had been thinking from the perspective of the heavenly realm. Now it was different. It only lived for itself, and did not want to participate in the dispute between the heaven realm and the underworld. It was originally an artifact spirit, so why should it live so tiredly? The artifact spirit of the Tai Ching rod was now completely dispirited. Its mentality had become muddling along, and its days were one day at a time. Now it planned to mix around with the Sea King and Haidafu. When it wanted to leave, it would then consider other things. Naturally, the Sea King did not know about this. It only knew that the artifact spirit within the rod was very stubborn and would not agree to let it be its master no matter what. Even so, the Sea King was very satisfied. After all, the artifact spirit had agreed to let it use it. After that, the Sea King specially went to test the power of the rod. As a result, the rod actually smashed a deep pit with a diameter of 1,000 meters on the surface of the sea. In an instant, waves that were 100 meters high were pushed in all directions and lasted for a long time before subsiding. The power displayed by the Tai Ching rod stunned the Sea King on the spot. At the same time, he knew that he had picked up a treasure. For this, he even found a godly realm shadow warrior to fight with him to test his actual combat ability. As a result, He only swung the rod 3 times, and that godly realm shadow warrior was almost scared out of his wits. After knowing the power of the rod, the Sea King was elated. He felt that Dr. Hai was really a treasure. Not only did he help him solve the crisis of life and death, he even gave him such a precious rod. He definitely couldn't let him leave. What the Sea King did not know was that the moment he came into contact with Dr. Hai, a cursed parasitic insect flew out of the Naraka realm. A certain ancient god who had cast the wrong curse had coincidentally cast the curse on the Sea King. It could be said that the Sea King's karma punishment was already on its way. However, as the Sea King continued to do good deeds, the parasitic insect suddenly got lost. At the same time, the Yellow Springs headquarters in the Central Sea region was also encountering strange incidents. At this moment, the Yellow Springs headquarters had received messages from the emissaries of other sea regions and knew that the Sea King was in the Starry Sea region. It should have been very easy to go there and eliminate this force. However, whenever the gods in the headquarters wanted to tear open the space and go there, they would always encounter many problems. It was either spatial disorder, spatial turbulence, or they were even directly transported to the wrong place. One of the most dangerous times, a god was even torn apart by the spatial turbulence in the spatial passage and almost lost his life. It could be said that all actions that were dangerous to Dr. Hai were unintentionally interfered with and disintegrated by the law of the Netherworld. After countless attempts, the Yellow Springs headquarters could only temporarily give up on the idea of killing the Sea King and his subordinate. However, they did not completely give up. This was because one of the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce's objectives was to eliminate all forces that could pose a threat to the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce in the future. This was also one of the reasons why the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce could stand tall until now. Currently, the Sea King was the target that needed to be eliminated. Although the Venerable Tree had said to leave a way out, the Venerable Tree could not represent the upper echelons of Netherworld at all. For the Venerable Tree, the upper echelons of the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce could only feel helpless. They possessed absolute strength, yet they repeatedly let the Yellow Springs Merchant Guild's hidden enemies escape. They were so willful that the Yellow Springs upper echelon couldn't do anything about it. Such things happened often, so the upper echelons of Netherworld were already used to the Tree Venerable letting the Shadow Clan go. However, this did not mean that the Yellow Springs headquarters would let the Sea King go. Next, they would continue their hunt for the Sea King. If they really gave the Venerable Tree face and did not pursue the matter, then the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce might not have any hostile forces in the Central Sea region. This was obviously unrealistic. As for the players, with the departure of the Tai Ching rod, the days of freeloading had come to an end. In this regard, the players missed the time when they queued up a month ago. At that time, as long as they could afford to wait, they could have the opportunity. They were much more generous than the dog officials. However, even though the Tai Ching rod had left, it had left behind a valuable treasure among the players. A large number of techniques, knowledge, and attribute points that could increase one's strength had accelerated the growth of the players in all aspects. At this stage, apart from leveling up and killing monsters, the players had another daily activity. That was cultivation. Although the techniques left behind by the Tai Ching rod were all heavenly techniques, under the modification of the artifact, all the cultivation consumption could be replaced with soul coins, which made up for the flaws in the technique. Therefore, the entire mansion of the dead had set off a cultivation craze. Moreover, cultivation did not seem boring to the players. Since they could view the interface, the progress percentage of each stage of the technique could be seen. This gave the players great motivation. Moreover, every time the cultivation ended, the players could see the growth of their physical fitness. During this period, they could also learn the skills that came with the technique, which was a great help in improving their strength. The growth of their own attributes also brought endless fun to the players. Therefore, cultivation was not boring to the players at all, and the progress was very fast. The only drawback was that it required a lot of soul coins. This also caused the value of soul coins to rise again. Many players even had to cross servers to buy soul coins. This was because in the soul coin exchange of the server, the soul coins with a suitable price had long been swept clean. The remaining soul coins were the high-priced soul coins placed on the exchange by the black-hearted players. Therefore, it was a very good choice to buy them across servers. The power of the entire server grew rapidly again. During this period, the first Ghost Emperor Realm player was finally born among the players. This person was Aojian. Relying on the rule of sword will, he easily passed the trial challenge of the early stage Ghost Emperor, and then proceeded to the trial challenge of the middle stage Ghost Emperor and the late stage Ghost Emperor. Under the player's live broadcast, Aojian created a miracle, passing the trial challenge one after another, and only stopped when he reached the Godly Realm level. He became the second player in the entire server to pass the demigod level. Naturally, the first player was Lionheart from the European server. Long before Aojian, he had already completed the challenge of this checkpoint. The difference was that Aojian relied on himself, while Reinhardt relied on the demigod mount, Hacker. In the following month, the members of the Wall Cheater group relied on this opportunity, coupled with the sufficient supply of soul coins for cultivation, to pass the trial challenge of the early stage Ghost Emperor. The combat power of the entire server skyrocketed. The Naraka server's strength skyrocketed along with the server. Ever since the Naraka players became united and occupied a corner of the server and began to focus on development, information and resources began to be shared, and the original internal strife had also subsided. Other than small groups or personal conflicts, Eric's Blacklight organization had reconciled with the United States military. The sharing of resources and information had brought about the rapid development of the entire Naraka server. With the help of artificial intelligence Eric, the technology of the Naraka server was advancing with each passing day. Coupled with the help of a large number of blueprints in the shop, the Naraka server now had the combat power to conquer the entire Blue Valley ruins. Eric had also fulfilled his wish to create a superweapon like the Bomberman that could threaten Godly Realm powerhouses. Weather weapon, Lightning Storm, relying on the produced weather controller, Eric and the scientists had been able to preliminarily control the weather in the third realm of the Naraka realm through countless experiments, producing lightning storms and carrying out destructive attacks on fixed areas. Although it required a large amount of spirit or resources to operate with this weapon, Eric knew that one of the shortcomings of the Naraka server had been made up for. From then on, they also had the ability to kill gods. Chapter 732. With the rise of the cultivation craze, the strength of the players had increased significantly. Lu Wu also began to plan the next step for the players. At this stage, Lu Wu had three considerations. First, the Central Sea. As the area closest to the six paths of reincarnation, this area was rich in extremely precious divinity spiritual materials, which were of great help to the improvement of players' strength. Divinity spiritual materials could also better help players break through to the godly realm in the future and comprehend the power of laws. Second, the Naraka realm. Although there were many powerhouses in the Naraka realm, Xitigarbha left behind many treasures after his death, such as the forbidden skills of the Naraka realm, the power of the bloodline. Also, there were also the production of spiritual materials with divine properties, but the production was not comparable to the Central Sea. Although there were already players from the Naraka realm in the Naraka realm, they only occupied a small area in the third region of the Naraka realm. The original players could definitely open up a new battlefield in the Naraka realm. Third, the Western Underworld. This world was relatively unfamiliar to the players, but Lu Wu had used the artifact to carefully explore this area and found that it had long been occupied by the minions of the Heavenly Realm. Although the stronghold of the Heavenly Realm in the Land of Death had been uprooted, the entire Western Underworld had not been completely eradicated. This could also be a good place for the players to hone their combat skills and improve their overall quality. All three options were feasible, so Lu Wu and Lil Bailey began to discuss their next step. Just as Lu Wu was hesitating, the artifact captured a message in the 6 paths of reincarnation. Western Underworld, fight. Lu Wu immediately guessed who this message came from. It was obviously from one of the great emperors in the 6 paths of reincarnation. As for why they used this method to contact Lu Wu, it was naturally because the great emperors did not know where Lu Wu was behind the scenes and could not take the initiative to establish contact with him, so they used this method. Obviously, the great emperors were also quietly watching the growth of the players. They were also aware of the future development direction of the players. In this regard, after some hesitation, Lu Wu decided to listen to the great emperor's suggestion and choose to develop in the Western Underworld. Moreover, although the Naraka realm and the Central Sea area of the Underworld could effectively help the players grow, it was still too early for the players to settle in these two areas with their current strength. Even if he went to the Naraka realm or the Central Sea region, he would only be beaten up in the early stages. After all, in those two places, the godly state was just the beginning, and the players had not even reached the godly state yet. There was a huge gap in strength. At this stage, the Western Underworld was the only place that matched the players' combat power. Moreover, with the Heavenly Realm as a factor, it was entirely possible to open up a battlefield in the Western Underworld. Not only would it help the players level up, but it would also eliminate the hidden dangers of the Heavenly Realm. Lu Wu immediately accepted the Great Emperor's suggestions. However, since he had the support of the Great Emperor, Lu Wu was ready to go big this time. Not only did he let the players of the original server join the battlefield, but he also wanted all the players in the server to join the crusade against the Western Underworld. For this reason, Lu Wu began to build a player city in the Realm of Death, which was at the border of the land of Luo and the land of Sun Luo. Lu Wu named the city Heavenly Reverse. The scale of the city was much larger than the Mansion of the Dead because it had to accommodate players from 5 servers. If it was too small, its development would be affected. At the same time, Lu Wu also built 5 main city teleportation circles in the Heavenly Reverse City. They led to the Mansion of the Dead, Hidden Dragon City, Land of Tsangshu, Skyburn City, Land of Demonic Spine, Blue Valley City, Land of Naraka, and Tribal City, Land of Xianfeng. By then, the players from the 5 servers could enter the new city through the main city and expand outward. After everything was built, Lu Wu began to set up the campaign. Although he did not set up the main quest, he set up rewards to encourage the players to participate in the war. For example, the reward for the first kill of the boss, the first kill of the Ghost Commander, the first kill of the Ghost General, the first kill of the Ghost King, the first kill of the Ghost Emperor, the first kill of the Demigod. As for the gods and ancient gods, according to the information that Lu Wu found, there were no gods or ancient gods in the Western Underworld. There was also the big domain ranking. Every time the players of the server killed an enemy soldier, they would be rewarded with a corresponding amount of points. The points earned by all the players in the server were the total points of the server, which was used to compare with other servers. At the same time, all the players in the top domains would be rewarded well. There were also special achievement settings. For example, the achievement of the number of enemies killed, the achievement of the battle achievement, the special achievement, and so on. In short, the players would be rewarded with achievement points for everything that helped their side gain a huge advantage in the war. At the same time, the Achievement Mall was launched. It contained a batch of new tools and equipment that Lil Bailey had developed. This was definitely a good thing for many civilian players. After all, the value of soul coins had increased due to the opening of the cultivation system. The price of soul coins had also increased accordingly. Therefore, when the level increased and they wanted to exchange for new equipment, the number of soul coins that the civilian players had was not enough. However, There was a new way now, which was to create achievements in the war and use the achievement points to exchange for the equipment that they wanted. There were many other plans. After a series of simulation tests, Lu Wu put all of them into use. About 10 days later, Heaven Reverse City had begun to take shape. It stood in the southern region of the Land of Death, which was the border between the 5 domains of the Western Underworld. In fact, the Western Underworld was already a wasteland at the current stage. There were not many living beings in the Underworld. Not only did the emperors of the Underworld ignore it, but many of the native creatures of the Underworld also gradually evacuated from this place. The reason was because of the Great War of the Three Realms. The Western Underworld was a battleground, which caused the entire Western Underworld to become a wasteland. Not to mention the lack of resources, the environment was extremely harsh. Basically, it was a colony of undead and soul creatures. According to Lu Wu's investigation, the Western Underworld was currently divided into 5 major forces. They were the Evil Spirit Mountain and the Lava Tomb in the east, the Bone Soul City in the north, and the Blood Pool and the Black Demon Forest in the south. There was also the Ghoul Camp located in the Land of Death. However, this force had long been uprooted by Lu Wu. The member of the Heaven Realm behind the scenes had also been killed by the players and no longer existed. The remaining 5 forces would be Lu Wu's next target. In fact, the territories of the Western Underworld controlled by the forces of the Heaven Realm were originally inhabited by the native forces of the Underworld. However, at this stage, these forces had either evacuated or were controlled or eliminated by the Heaven Realm, completely separated from the camp of the Underworld. The emperors were naturally aware of this, but they never interfered. It was one of the means to appease the Heaven Realm. After all, the emperors of the Underworld didn't know whether the Grand Elder had recovered or not. If they rashly attacked the Western Underworld, it would send a message to the Heaven Realm that the Underworld had the intention to go against the Heaven Realm. This might provoke the War of the Three Realms, which would be a disaster that the Underworld couldn't bear. By then, the outcome would inevitably be the defeat of the Underworld and the unification of the Three Realms by the Heaven Realm. Therefore, as long as the Heaven Realm didn't interfere with the higher levels of the Underworld gods, the great emperors would choose to turn a blind eye. However, at this stage, after the Tai Ching Rod incident, the great emperors had already noticed the clues of the Heaven Realm. They realized that the Grand Elder seemed to have not recovered yet, and the forces of the Heaven Realm didn't crush the Underworld as they thought. At this moment, the great emperors had a new idea. After enduring for a long time, it was finally time to do something. Although the Heaven Realm was still stronger than the Underworld at this stage, the gap would not be too big. Although the Heaven Realm still had the highest chance of winning if they rashly started a war at this time. However, to win, the Heaven Realm would also have to pay a heavy price. This was obviously unacceptable to the Heaven Realm. Therefore, it was the best time to weaken the power of the Heaven Realm as much as possible at this time. However, the great emperors of the Underworld wouldn't take the initiative to attack, nor would they interfere with the development and choices of any forces of the Underworld. They would let them take the initiative to attack the Western Underworld. Therefore, at this time, they thought of the Player Clan and knew that the Player Clan had the ability to do it. Therefore, they released a message in the 6 Paths of Reincarnation for Lu Wu to capture, expressing their thoughts. Lu Wu chose to accept it, and Heaven Reverse City was the first step in Lu Wu's war against the Western Underworld. In the next few days, Lu Wu was busy with the construction of Heaven Reverse City. After the facilities in the city were completed, Lu Wu added a new set of auction houses. This auction house was exclusive to Heaven Reverse City and belonged to the joint auction house of the 5 main servers. All internal transactions were subject to cross-server processing fees. This included the transactions of items between players in the same server. Lu Wu had his reasons for setting up this auction house. The main reason was to make it easier for the players to find the items they needed. At the same time, Lu Wu could also earn more soul coins. After all, the construction of the city required money, and the money was naturally the same. The wool came from the sheep's back. After spending so many soul coins to build Heaven Reverse City, he had to earn some money to recoup his losses. After all, Lu Wu's cultivation also required the support of a large number of soul coins. In fact, with the help of a large number of soul coins, Lu Wu could totally become a god at his current stage. However, he was fundamentally different from the underworld's beings. All the underworld's beings had to master the power of law and pass the trial of the great emperors in order to be listed on the underworld god list. Lu Wu was the same. He had already mastered the right to become a god. He had the heavenly demon list, which was a completely different system from the heavenly realm and the underworld. To become a god, for Lu Wu, it was a matter of nodding his head. However, Lu Wu did not do so. This was because he had already surpassed the level of gods and was the supreme existence that had the right to become a god. The cultivation in the future was to strengthen the heavenly demon list and collect more power of law for it. This way, his strength would increase along with the heavenly demon list. At the same time, as the power of law collected by the heavenly demon list continued to increase, the value of the players becoming a god in the future would also increase. By that time, the players would be special existences that could master the different power of law in the heavenly realm and the underworld. Of course, the heavenly demon list was only one of the means for Lu Wu to become stronger. The cultivation of the Emperor's mirror was also a top priority. At the same time, as the Emperor, the stronger the players were, the greater the luck of the human race that he would receive. It could be said that the development of the entire human race played a decisive role in the growth of Lu Wu's strength. Therefore, in the days to come, Lu Wu's focus was still on helping the players grow. It was only when the players became stronger that he could obtain more soul coins for development, construction, and other expenses. At the same time, he could also obtain greater strength. Chapter 733. After the construction of Heaven Reverse City in the Western Underworld was completed, Lu Wu decided to officially open it to the players. At this moment, a game notification rang in the minds of all the players. Game notification. The entire server is being updated to open a new battle area. The details of the update are as follows. Opening of the new main city summary. The new main city, Heaven Reverse City, is open in this update. This city is connected to the main cities of all the major servers. Players can travel to Heaven Reverse City through the teleportation circle in the main city. 2 new auction house system summary. The newly launched auction house is only applicable in Heaven Reverse City. There are no server barriers and players can trade freely. All goods will be subject to an 8% handling fee, 10% handling fee for cross-server auctions. 3 new battle system summary. After this update, the battle achievement points, the major region ranking, and the individual merit ranking are available. The details are as follows. 4 Descent of the Heavenly Devil summary. After this update, all the points obtained by the players will become the source of power to awaken the Heavenly Devil. When the points reach a certain amount, the Heavenly Devil will be awakened to help the players in the battle. Condition to awaken the Heavenly Devil. Points 0/300000000. The last descent of the Heavenly Devil was none other than Lu Wu. The reason why he decided to join the players in the battle was that he felt it was time to sharpen his combat skills. The underworld and the heavenly realm had completely fallen out with each other. The war would break out a long time ago, and it was time for him to prepare. Apart from the development of the players, the training of his own strength would also become the focus. Of course, he would not descend in person. Instead, he would join the players in the battle as the Heavenly Devil. After the server-wide announcement, Lu Wu also posted an update in the forum as an official so that the players could better view the updated content. At this time, the forum was already in an uproar as people were discussing the updated content. Watermelon_Taro. Heavenly Devil? Isn't that the big meat shield? I still remember him. I didn't expect him to officially join the players' camp. I'm looking forward to it. Laughing emoji. A_big_wolf dog. Ha ha ha, big meat shield. I even gave him a cigarette and took a screenshot of it. Big meat shield smoking decadently. JPG. Surely_the_strongest. Big meat shield. Take the most vicious beating and smoke the strongest smoke. I may not be able to defeat you, but I can exhaust you to death. Please continue beating me, thank you, laughing emoji. Peppa Boar. Now that you mention it, I remember. The big meat shield that withstood Bomberman's nuclear explosion and is still safe and sound. His HP is really scary. Now we have something to play with. Laughing emoji. Star Universe. Europe, it looks like the opportunity for the European server to rise has arrived. This time, the 5 servers will join forces. I propose that the European server be the leader. Who agrees and who opposes? Crayon_Shinchan replied to Star_Universe. How many dishes did you get drunk? Why don't you have any sense of propriety? Totemic power, unconvinced I've tolerated you guys for too long. This time, not only are we going to start a war, but we're also going to beat up the players from all 4 servers. Sword of Faith, Asia server, looks like the competition has begun again. Our Asia server has been secretly developing for a long time. I feel that the strength of the Asia server is now in the top 3. Perhaps we will have the opportunity to compete with the original server. The Romance of Men, Naraka server, I won't bullsh *t, let's talk about the data. The current Naraka server is definitely stronger than the original server. I bet 100 soul coins. After understanding the contents of the update, the players of all the major servers started arguing on the forum, in addition to discussing the content of the update. Regarding who was stronger, the players did not have a specific idea about the combat strength of the other servers as there was no cross-realm battle at this stage. They only had a vague guess. Especially after the defeat of Aojian, the players of the Asia server felt that with the advantage in numbers and the combat strength of the cheats, their potential was the greatest among the 5 servers. The Naraka server felt the same way. After all, they even had the god-slaying weapon now. In addition to the players' unity, their combat strength could be said to have skyrocketed. They felt that the development of the server that they were in had already surpassed the original server. This was even more so for the unconvinced server. After they established the tribal federation, their strength was no longer the same as before. They felt that they had the ability to compete with any server. At this moment, the players felt that the server that they were in should be the strongest at this stage. Among them, only the players of the European server knew that the original server was still the strongest. Because it was close to the original server, they often paid attention to the development of the original server. The players also often crossed servers. After the Tai Ching Rod incident, the players of the European server were very clear that the current momentum of the original server was stronger than before. Not only did the gap between the original server and the other servers not shrink, but it had also widened. Of course, it was one thing to know that the original server was strong, but they must not lose in terms of momentum. Anyway, this was the forum. So what if they were a little arrogant? Jump out and bite them if you dare. Therefore, the players of the European server were very arrogant and started to make harsh remarks first. At this moment, the players of all the major servers in the original server forum gathered and a war of words was inevitable. Crayon Shinchan even started to attack others. He spat out 5 words in a second and battled with the heroes. This caused the bounty to rise continuously. Although he felt good, there was still a faint sadness in the depths of his heart. After the update was completed, the players also discovered that there was an additional option on the teleportation circle of the main city, and that was Heaven Reverse City. One trip would cost 5 soul coins. Compared to the teleportation fee of 1 soul coin in other regions, the teleportation fee in Heaven Reverse City was 5 times more expensive. In this regard, the players could do nothing but curse the game developers for being stingy. However, out of curiosity about the new main city, the players reluctantly chose to teleport, at this time, in the central square of the Mansion of the Dead. All the major guilds had begun to gather their guild members and were ready to go together. They were even prepared to start the expedition in advance. They wanted to fight for the lead in points for the original server. At this time, Gu Yu and the dog were among them. After asking the members to return as soon as possible in the guild live chat channel and gather in Heaven Reverse City, Gu Yu and the dog opened the teleportation panel. With a flash of white light, Gu Yu and the dog realized that the scene in front of them had changed. They found themselves in the sky and below them was a thick layer of clouds. At this time, his line of sight pierced through the clouds and continued to look down. What appeared in front of him was a magnificent main city. There were all kinds of buildings inside, and it was divided into 4 districts: east, south, west, and north. In the central plaza, there was a huge screen with 3 rankings on it: Major Region Ranking, Individual Merit Ranking, and Achievement Point Ranking, Individual. At this time, the overlooking screen suddenly disappeared. Gu Yu and the dog found themselves in the central square of this Heaven Reverse City. What appeared in front of them was a bustling crowd. Some were running quickly, some were strolling around on their mounts, and the most outrageous were the players from the Naraka server who were driving planes and tanks in the city. The scene was extremely chaotic. So many people. Looking at the continuous flow of players from all the major servers, the dog let out a sigh. Hearing this, a touch of excitement appeared on Gu Yu's face. "I'm afraid there's going to be a lot of fun next. The external expedition is one thing, but there will definitely be internal friction." The dog heard this and could not help but bare his teeth. Remember to protect our healer. Chapter 734. After Heaven Reverse City was officially opened, a large number of players from different servers teleported to the city through the main city. At this moment, the central square of the city was already crowded with players, and they were spreading to the 4 major districts of Heaven Reverse City. During this period, the players from all the servers were already full of gunpowder. If it weren't for the main city being a safe zone where players could not attack each other, a chaotic battle would have been inevitable. At this stage, the most important thing was still the competition on the big region leaderboard. Since the players had never been to this area before, they could only see a fog when they opened the map. There was no fixed route at all. Thus, the exploration of the outside world began. East of the Great Western Region, Evil Spirit Mountain. Looking down from the sky, there was a seemingly bottomless pit with a diameter of more than 3,000 meters among the rolling mountains. At this moment, black fog was constantly emerging from the pit, and ferocious-looking evil spirits floated out of it from time to time. Outside the pit, a burly man with a half-real body and a height of 2 meters was staring at the deep pit with bright eyes. There was anticipation in his eyes. Time passed quickly, and half a day had passed. At this moment, there was an ear-piercing wail from inside the pit. Then, a winged lizard with a body size of 100 meters flew out from inside. This winged lizard's body was mostly left with a skeleton, and its body was covered with rotten flesh. However, its head was burning with a ghostly fire. Seeing this, the man laughed out loud. He knew that his experiment was a success. As a force of the Heaven Realm in the Western Nether Realm, Ran Fu had been constantly deploying forces in the Western Nether Realm according to the will of the Heaven Realm. He was not a person of the Heaven Realm, but a new life created by the Heaven Realm with a special method. Although his characteristics were more inclined to the Nether Realm, he never thought of himself as a part of the Nether Realm. His biggest hope was to complete the task given by the Heaven Realm, and then be taken to the Heaven Realm to rebuild his body and become a true member of the Heaven Realm. During the long period of cultivation and waiting, the Heaven Realm would often provide spiritual materials and other resources. Ran Fu had always been studying how to develop his forces according to the instructions of the Heaven Realm. With the help of the Heaven Realm, he created the Evil Spirit Pit, which could continuously provide new forces for his forces. However, there was always a bottleneck in development. The biggest obstacle was the breakthrough of his own strength. No matter how hard Ranfu tried, he could not break through to the divine realm. He was stuck at the peak of the demigod realm. After countless attempts, he gave up on the growth of his own strength and devoted himself to the expansion of the scale of his subordinate forces. For this reason, he stared at the remains of the warriors who had died in wars or confrontations between forces buried deep underground in the western underworld. Although these dead warriors had long since lost their souls, part of their physical strength was still preserved. This was of great value to the flaming float technique. In this regard, he began his research. Other than the wraiths, he wanted to create a new kind of skeletal life form. Day and night, after continuous attempts and research, the floating matter did not achieve its desired goal. Instead, it was disheartened to find that it had no ability to control the remains of the dead warriors. But this plan did not stop. Once again, he received help from the Heaven Realm. A powerful immortal monarch guided him on what to do. 50,000 years had passed, and a large number of warrior corpses had been wasted. But now the experiment had finally succeeded. Ranfu laughed excitedly as he looked at the demigod realm rotten dragon that had flown out of the evil spirit pit. He knew that he now had the ability to create powerful warriors in batches. The entire western underworld was filled with the remains of warriors. He had resources that he could use. In the future, he would be the strongest in this realm. No living being could compete with him. Whether it was the nearby lava tomb, the Bone Soul City in the north, or the Blood Pool and the Black Demon Forest in the south, none of them would be a match for him. He would become the most important force in the Heaven Realm. At this moment, the floating matter felt that he was not far from his dream. He would soon be rewarded by the Heaven Realm and become a true Heaven Realm being. Although he had the ability to think, he had once suspected whether the Heaven Realm was using him and whether they would abandon him in the end. But in reality, the floating matter did not really care about it. I am a dog of the Heaven Realm. This was the position he had given himself, and it had never changed. In the days to come, he would continue to serve the Heaven Realm and work hard to complete the tasks assigned by the Sky God. At this moment, the floating matter suddenly felt a headache. Then, he heard a voice in his head. Floating matter. Hearing the familiar voice, the floating matter's heart skipped a beat. He immediately said respectfully, "My lord, what can I do for you? What happened in the land of death that borders the evil spirit mountain recently?" These words made the floating matter puzzled. "My lord, nothing has happened. Why do you say that?" According to the information from the Heavenly Strategies Bureau, their heaven's eye can no longer detect any information in the eastern region of the land of death. It seems that the area is shrouded by some kind of power. Go and investigate, then report to me. I suspect that the forces of the underworld are going to attack you. Yes, I'll do it right away, the floating matter replied respectfully. As the consciousness in his head faded, the floating matter felt uneasy. If the forces of the underworld were really attacking, it would be a disaster for the dogs that the Heaven Realm had planted here. Thinking about this, the floating matter looked at the corrosive dragon that was devouring the evil spirits in the sky and immediately issued an order. The corrosive dragon shook its head and let out an ear-piercing roar. Then, it flapped its wings and flew towards the floating matter. As the corrosive dragon approached, the floating matter leaped onto the back of the corrosive dragon and flew towards the land of death. At the same time, the other pawns that worked for the Heaven Realm, like the floating matter, also received the message from the Heaven Realm and went to investigate the situation in the land of death. The reason why the Heavenly Strategies Bureau couldn't detect any information in the eastern region of the land of death was because of Lu Wu. Heaven Reverse City was the headquarters to fight against the western underworld. Lu Wu must have made some preparations, so he couldn't expose all the information. As for what the Heaven Realm would think, Lu Wu couldn't be bothered. After all, that was the intention of the emperors of the underworld. Since they had already fallen out with each other, they would just have to do it. After half a day of traveling, the corrosive dragon flew into the land of death. As they moved forward, the silhouette of a city appeared in front of the floating matter. Looking at the city, the floating matter's face was filled with astonishment. In his memory, the eastern region of the land of death was a barren land with no living creatures. However, a city appeared in front of him. Judging from the size of the city, it was obviously not built in a short period of time. This left Ran Fu scratching his head in confusion. For safety's sake, he immediately ordered the corrosive dragon to fly higher. After passing through the clouds, he continued to move forward. As they approached the city, the interior of the city appeared in front of the floating matter. At this moment, he couldn't believe it. This city actually had a large number of buildings, which was very strange. If the forces of the underworld were preparing to wipe them out, they wouldn't have spent so much effort to build a city. It was unnecessary and unnecessary. They could have just declared war on the five forces. On the contrary, it was more likely that the forces of the underworld who had fled here were preparing to settle down and build a city here. However, this didn't make sense. There was a lack of resources nearby, so there was no reason for them to stay here. Therefore, the city seemed illogical to the floating matter. As they continued to approach, the floating matter sensed something. He immediately flew to the side, passed through layers of clouds, and found the leaders of the other four forces who were also coming to investigate. They were Fiery Lava from the Lava Tomb, Black Lord from the Bone Soul City, Blood Tiger from the Blood Pool, and Soul Sucker from the Black Demon Forest. Seeing the four of them gathered here, the floating matter immediately approached them. "Have you received the order from the Lord?" The four nodded. The leader, Fiery Lava, frowned. "Have you seen this city in the realm of death? I remember that the realm of death was occupied by the ghoul army. Theoretically, there shouldn't be any life here. I've been here 2 years ago. I'm certain that there isn't a city here. Judging from the scale of the city, it's obvious that it wasn't built in 2 years, so the appearance of this city is a little strange," said the Soul Catcher from the Black Demon Forest. At this moment, the five of them looked at the huge city below the clouds again. Though they had the urge to go down and investigate, they were cautious and refrained from doing so. After all, they couldn't tell if there was any danger. "I have a suggestion. How about we each send a team to investigate?" Fiery Lava suggested. "All right, let's find out first. If it's a force of the underworld that has fled here, we'll wipe them out," the Soul Sucker said with a glint of bloodthirst in his eyes. Ran Fu and the others didn't stay any longer after they had decided on a course of action. They went back to their respective forces. On the third day, outside the main city of Heaven Reverse City, countless monsters showed up. Wraiths, blood thralls, lava beasts, dark demons, skeletons. Though it was just an investigation, the 5 major forces of the Western Underworld had sufficient military reserves. Even if it was just an investigation, the number of troops they sent out could be huge. Along the way, this huge army killed a large number of lone players and headed straight for the major city of Heaven Reverse. After learning about this through the forum, the players in the main city were not nervous. Instead, they were excited. After exploring for a long time, many guilds found nothing, let alone monsters that could earn them points. Now that they knew the monsters were coming, they knew it was time to earn points. The ranking of the major regions was finally going to change. The major guilds gathered their members and got ready for battle. In the players' eyes, their opponents were not the incoming monsters but the players from other servers. These players would be cruel and merciless to players of different factions. They might stab you in the back when you were having fun. Therefore, the first thought that came to the minds of many players was, "He who strikes first gains the upper hand. He who strikes later suffers the consequences." As a Battle League player, if he didn't stab his own people first, he wouldn't be a player. Chapter 735. Heaven Reverse City, East Gate. With the arrival of the monster tide, the players were gearing up for battle. The guilds of the major servers had also finished gathering their manpower at this moment. They were waiting for the monsters to attack so that they could farm experience, soul coins, and point. Although war was coming, the players' faces were brimming with smiles. It was less than a month before the launch of the Battle Royale server for 4 years. The players had experienced many battles. Even the battles that the underworld forces had accumulated for hundreds of years were not as many as the players had experienced in the past 4 years. Therefore, the players were already familiar with war and were not afraid of it at all. With the appearance of densely packed black dots in the distance, the voice of "Prepare for Battle" sounded in the live chat channel of each server. When the monsters approached, the battle broke out prematurely. At this moment, the players' first attack was not on the attacking monsters, but on the players of other servers around them. They carried out the principle of striking first and gaining the upper hand. After all, there were only so many monsters and they did not seem to be as large as the number of players. Therefore, killing a player of another server meant that there would be one less competitor to snatch soul coins, experience, and point. Among them, many healer professions became the target of focus fire. As the healers of a team, they had the ability to help a team in continuous combat. Among them, the best of the best could even restore their teammates to their peak in time, no matter how much damage they had suffered. The players who were deeply aware of this naturally targeted the healer players of other servers. The wood spiritual descendants of the original server, the priests of the European server, the auxiliary mechs of the Naraka server, the ancient bronze tree totem faith of the non-server, and the psionicists of the Asian server. These professions all had the ability to help their teammates in continuous combat on the battlefield. They were also the main targets of focus fire now. As the number 1 healer selected by the forum, the dog had become the number 1 target of many guilds. Before the battle started, many melee and long-range players, and even assassin-type players had locked their eyes on him. When the chaotic battle suddenly broke out, the dog was horrified to feel the murderous aura coming from all directions. Kill the dog first. His group healing ability is too strong. We can't let him live. If the dog doesn't die, he can heal a large number of original server players and stand up again. Kill him first. Aim the laser cannon at the puppy, blast it. Assassin, go stealthily and kill the puppy in the back row of the Myth Guild. At that moment, Go Z was terrified. I'm just a white phantom who loves peace and nature. Do you have the heart to lay your hands on me? The reality was that not only were the players in other servers cruel, but they could also be cruel. Boss, save me. Sun Chi immediately turned his gaze to Guyu. Guyu nodded immediately. Don't worry. The entire Myth Guild will protect you. There won't be any problems. Boom. As soon as Guyu's voice died away, a loud noise came from beside him. A metal box crashed heavily into the crowd of his guild members. Then, the metal box began to tremble and reorganize itself. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a 2-meter-tall robot that pounced on Sun Chi. What the F***? Guyu immediately activated the demonic god body and threw a punch at it. As the raging flames rose, the robot that suddenly attacked was blown into pieces. However, before Guyu could react, attacks came from all directions. The members of the Myth Guild were besieged immediately and they were miserable. Although the Myth Guild was very strong, they were facing a joint attack from 4 servers and many guilds. Their target was not the Myth Guild. Their main target was Sun Chi, who could cast group healing in a large area. Without Sun Chi, they would have less pressure to compete with each other. After all, without Sun Chi's healing, many players who were injured might not be able to quickly recover to full condition and join the battle again. Therefore, killing Sun Chi was equivalent to killing a large number of players from the original server. In order to protect Sun Chi, the members of the Myth Guild gave it their all and immediately began to fight back. Sun Chi did not delay. Seeing that his guild members were injured, he immediately released healing light. As light green fluorescent rain fell, many injured members of the Myth Guild were healed in the blink of an eye. Seeing this, the members of the major guilds who were besieging the Myth Guild became even more determined to kill Sun Chi. If this dog was not killed, it would become a huge problem. The subsequent attacks became more ferocious. One of the guilds in Naraka even used the plasma cannon and blasted it at Sun Chi. Facing the Krypton gold attack from Naraka, Gu Yu was also troubled. However, he gritted his teeth and went forward. After all, he had to protect Sun Chi. Boom! The charged particles hit Gu Yu squarely on his chest. Gu Yu felt dizzy and dizzy. He could only feel that the world was spinning around him. Fortunately, Sun Chi's healing came in time and Gu Yu's HP was fully restored. However, this was just the beginning. As the assassins approached, the battle became more intense. In the face of such a violent attack, members of the Myth Guild began to fall. Even Sun Chi could not rescue them in time. As the members of the Myth Guild decreased, Sun Chi was in despair. Gu Yu was even more desperate. During this period, his HP was being pulled back and forth, and he drank a lot of potions. However, he still felt powerless in the face of the siege. Gu Yu did not expect that his first chance to farm points would end before the Myth Guild even started. As the Naraka server's Krypton Gold charged plasma cannon attacked again, Gu Yu was severely injured on the spot. Seeing this, Sun Chi immediately aimed at Gu Yu and released the rejuvenation skill. However, before the skill was released, Sun Chi suddenly realized in horror that his vision was gradually dimming. Then, a game notification rang in his mind. Game notification: you have been sniped by the Naraka server's player, Emily. Fatal head injury has been determined to be dead. At this moment, Sun Chi's eyes widened. One-hit kill. I'm AF * King Mythological Beast. This damage is too much. Although he had always been the guild's healer, Sun Chi was still very confident in his own defense. After all, he was a white phantom spiritual beast. His agility and defense were also attributes that came with the inheritance. However, at this moment, he was killed in one hit. The damage really shocked Sun Chi. However, with a flash of white light, the effect of the soul-praying wine took effect. Sun Chi was resurrected on the spot. Bang! At this moment, another bullet came flying. Sun Chi, who had not yet stabilized himself, turned into a black fog and disappeared on the spot. Sun Chi, Gu Yu, in less than 3 seconds after his death, the effect of the soul-praying wine took effect for the second time and the dog was resurrected again. This time, Gu Yu, who realized that there was a sniper on the other side, immediately stepped in front of Sun Chi and put on a defensive posture. In Gu Yu's line of sight, a delicate-looking bullet that was engraved with a lily appeared. Gu Yu immediately calmed down and clenched his fist, ready to take the hit. In the state of the demonic god body, he did not believe that he would be killed in a second. However, to Gu Yu's surprise, the bullet turned a strange arc in the air and then disappeared from the corner of his eyes. Bang! Sun Chi, who was behind him, was shot in the forehead and died on the spot. As his vision dimmed again, Sun Chi was going crazy. This was too much of a bully. Even a bullet could turn a corner. How could he play the game properly? At this moment, Sun Chi only had one resurrection left. Since the soul-praying wine was expensive and had a limited duration of about 30 days, under normal circumstances, Sun Chi would not drink all the soul-praying wine in one go. Instead, he would only drink 4 bottles and keep the rest. However, the current situation was that even if he could use the soul-praying wine, the sniper in the dark would not give him the chance. With the arrival of the last resurrection, the dog looked at Gu Yu the moment he was resurrected and shouted, "Boss, hold me tight." In Sun Chi's opinion, only by letting Gu Yu hold him tight could he fully defend against the unexpected bullet. However, after hearing this, Gu Yu's expression was complicated. "Why don't you just die? I feel like you're hopeless." Sun Chi was stunned, and then he died on the spot, turning into a black fog and dissipating. At this moment, Sun Chi was crying, feeling like he was being bullied. Was it really good to be so cruel to a healer? In the future, when we fight across worlds, I will blacklist Emily. I won't help her at all. Without the effect of the soul-praying wine, Sun Chi could only wait for the cooldown to expire after 3 hours. Filled with resentment, he opened the forum and watched the battle through the live broadcast. However, through the live broadcast, Sun Chi quickly realized that there were many healers who were in the same situation as him. It could be said that all the healers present were being attacked by players from other servers. At this time, at the East City Gate, the players were still fighting. In order to protect their healers, many players were extremely frustrated. At this moment, some players could not hold it in any longer. I'm not going to protect you anymore. You killed my healer, I'll kill yours. Come on, let's hurt each other. We might as well not have a healer. I'm not going to protect you anymore. I'm so tired. I've already drunk 200 soul coins. If this goes on, I'll be poor. Healer, protect yourself. I'm going to charge first. There are assassins everywhere. It's impossible to guard against them. Why are you still protecting Hammer? I'm going to counterattack. At this moment, many tank players changed their battle strategy. They did not protect the healers anymore. Instead, they led the team to attack the other guilds and counterattacked by killing the opposing healers. Only the healers from both sides were left. Their faint silhouettes were scattered in the wind. You said that if you want to kill me, you'll have to step over my dead body first. You said that as long as you're here, no one can hurt me. You said that you're the most solid tank in the team. If you don't fall, I won't be hurt, ha. Bah, trash tank. At this moment, the healers were hurt. Holding on to hope, they looked at the long-range players around them, trying to get help. However, what they saw was that the long-range players were standing far away from them, as if they were afraid of being implicated. Bah, trash mage, long range. In their resentment, many mage players fell to the ground with hatred. Like Sun Chi, they entered the cooldown time of resurrection. Although the players of the major servers did not agree on killing the healers first, they all knew that this was the way to maximize the benefit. Without the healers, a prolonged battle would inevitably result in a large number of casualties. Therefore, killing the healers was the best way to prevent other servers from stealing kills. Apart from that, many players with high lethality also became the target of concentrated fire at this moment. For example, Niefeng. He was surrounded by a group of assassin players at the start of the battle and died on the spot before he could even say a word. At this moment, the only one who could remain calm was Yuan Fong. At this moment, he squatted at the city gate with his hands resting on his cheeks. He looked at the chaotic battle with a weary expression. Another day when no one wants to play with me. Chapter 736. The players of the major servers often argued with each other on the forum, and they had long been waiting for the opportunity to hammer the players of the other servers with their swords and guns. Especially the players of the non-server. The miserable start of the game had caused them to be ridiculed by the players of the other servers as Battle 5 trash on the forum. It was rare for the 5 major factions to join forces again, and the players of the non-server who had grown up all wanted to turn the tables. Therefore, at this moment, when they hammered the players of the other server, they were so fierce that they completely vented out the grievances in their hearts. The feeling of pressing the players of the other camp to the ground and hammering the heads of those who had said on the forum that they could fight 1 against 10 in the non-server would be known after experiencing it. The joy of the players of the non-server was that simple and violent. The joy of the players of the other servers was even simpler. At this stage, it was to kill all the healers of the other camps and cut off their supplies. From time to time, the happy laughter of some idiotic players could be heard in the live chat channel. Hee hee, little healer, I've found you. Come and eat a backstab from your grandpa assassin. TSK, little healer, why are you lying on the ground pretending to be a corpse? Did you forget that after we die we turn into black fog and dissipate? There are only players here. I don't understand your attempt to cover up. Then I'll reward you with your favorite cross/. Little healer, you want to pretend to be a warrior with a shield? You're too naive. Tell me, how do you want to die? Look, I found a lively little healer. Watch me poke your main artery. Even though a cruel war was about to come, the players were already happy in advance, except for the healer players. When the healer players of the major servers were beaten offline in advance, the players gave up on defense and changed to attack. At this time, the monster tide arrived. The densely packed monsters rushed into the group of players like a wave of torrent. These special creatures that were created had no consciousness of their own and were completely controlled by the leaders of the 5 major factions behind the scenes. They launched a fierce attack on the players. At this moment, the players put aside their grudges and began to kill the monsters. A new competition had begun. However, at this moment, without the healers, the players could only rely on the potions in the shop if they wanted to recover their health. The cost skyrocketed, and the effect was not necessarily as good as the healers. Under such circumstances, self-protection became very important. This was especially true for the tank players. Only when they didn't have a healer did they realize how painful it was to fight alone. Their HP dropped rapidly, and they had to rely on spending money to buy potions from the shop to keep themselves alive. But the wet nurse he had abandoned had to cry and resist. The happiest person was Lu Wu, who was behind the scenes. Buy as much as you can. There is an unlimited supply of potions in the shop. I love you cuties who love to kill nannies. Lu Wu, who had been watching the battle from behind the scenes, collected a large number of soul coins while lying down. He was grinning from ear to ear. The boss behind the scenes enjoyed watching the players spend money in the shop. At this moment, Lu Wu even wanted to make an announcement. Would you be able to survive if you didn't spend money? Only by spending money will you be able to earn more points. Take out all your money and spend it all in one go. Up in the clouds, Ran Fu and the others were quietly watching the battle below. Their expressions were quite interesting. In the words of the Sea King, "What's wrong with killing our own people? Is there a problem? Country bumpkin, don't make a fuss." At first, Ran Fu and the others were shocked when they saw the army of players gathering outside the city gate. This was because the number of players was so large that it far exceeded the group of monsters they had sent to scout. It seemed that this was an extremely powerful force. However, their purpose was to find out the specific strength of this force. They did not care about the casualties of the monsters they sent to scout. Therefore, they did not stop the monsters from approaching Heaven Reverse City. However, what happened next left them dumbfounded. Before the battle began, the residents of the city had already started fighting among themselves. The 5 team leaders were dumbfounded by the brutality of the battle. Now we can be sure that this force is definitely not a force gathered by the underworld to deal with us. Moreover, we can see that they are not harmonious internally. Molten Flame suddenly said, "This is a good thing for us." A smile appeared on the face of the soul capturer. "Next, let's see how strong this force is. If they are not too strong, we have a steady stream of warriors to exhaust them. Sooner or later, we will destroy them." Ha ha, this is indeed good news. Obviously, they are not united internally. Perhaps we can try to rope in one of the forces and destroy this force from the inside out. Good idea. Seeing this scene, the 5 team leaders of the Westworld discussed among themselves. The worries in their hearts had completely dissipated. Now that they had confirmed that this force was not a force gathered by one of the major forces of the underworld to eliminate them, they naturally did not have to worry about their own safety. Next, what they had to do was to wipe out this force from the Westworld. Just like when they joined forces to annihilate the remaining local forces of the Westworld. At this time, the battle had already broken out outside the eastern gate of Heaven Reverse City. At this moment, the most important thing was to snatch points and strive to be the first in the major region point ranking. since the major region point ranking was displayed on the big screen in the central square of Heaven Reverse City in real time. The players attached great importance to it. This was not just a matter of personal interest. It was also a matter of the reputation of the camp. Whoever fell behind would inevitably be ridiculed. In the future, the confidence of the players in the forum would depend on this ranking. Therefore, in order to kill more monsters and obtain more points, the players were extra serious. The current players were different from the past. In the past, if the players wanted to defeat their opponents, they could only rely on the characteristic of unlimited resurrection to exhaust their opponent. However, now that the players' strength had increased, resurrection was only a trump card and was no longer a necessary method in battles against the outside world. Many players could now fight 2 enemies at once, and the stronger ones could even fight 10 enemies at once. At this moment, many players with long-range attack abilities such as mages, rechargeable mechs, and necromancers also set up long-range attack methods such as magic cannons and began to carpet bomb the enemies. At this moment, the advantage of the Naraka server was highlighted. As a technological growth system, the Naraka server had an innate advantage in terms of area of effect attack. Various types of technological weapons could also harvest the lives of monsters in a large area. Although their single attack damage was not as high as that of the players in other servers, when the monsters were not as strong as the players, there was no need to use the strategy of defeating them one by one. Continuously releasing area of effect attacks to harvest points was the best choice. Seeing this, the players in other servers were unhappy. Pairs of resentful eyes were cast on the players in the Naraka server, who were releasing area of effect attack. There was no need for superfluous words. The first principle was to fight if they were unhappy. I can't take it anymore. I'll let you attack as many as you want. Die. At this moment, a knight from the European server immediately changed his direction. He maneuvered the Earth Dragon beneath him and slammed it into a rechargeable mech player not far away, pinning him to the ground. Following that, his teammates beside him also changed their direction of attack. They dragged the rechargeable mech player out of the mech, pinned him to the ground, and beat him up. Their methods were extremely cruel. Similar incidents were happening in every corner of the battlefield. As rechargeable mech warriors who carried many technological weapons such as missiles with them, they had the most powerful carpet bombing ability in the entire server. They did not care about the feelings of the players from other camps when they attacked. Some teams had just beaten the nearby monsters to a critical point, but the Naraka server would use a missile to rob the monsters of their points, soul coins, and experience. This caused dissatisfaction among the players in other servers. Although points were something that was fair competition, if one's methods were overboard, they would be beaten up. Therefore, the rechargeable mech warriors in the Naraka server were in trouble. The assassin players from the original server entered stealth mode and began to assassinate the rechargeable mech players from the Naraka server. At this time, the players who were long-range attackers in the back row were also unhappy with each other. The battle was about to begin. The necromancers of the European server were the first to attack. They began to release skills such as Death Coil and Life Extraction to control the long-range attackers of the other servers around them. They wanted to kill all the opponents who were trying to steal their points. The battle between long-range attackers was a competition of damage output and control method. However, what the players from the European server, the Naraka server, the Asian server, and the non-server did not expect was that the mage players from the original server suddenly put away their staffs. They did not adopt the long-range attack mode. Sword come! Along with a series of angry shouts, a spiritual sword condensed from energy emerged from the mage players' bodies. Immediately after, they lifted the spiritual sword and leaped toward the long-range attackers of the other servers beside them. As the sword aura swept across the battlefield, the long-range attackers of the other servers, who were also in the back row, were attacked by the sharp sword aura. Seeing their companions falling one after another, the players from the other servers were instantly blown up. This was not F*King normal. As a long-range attacker, was it really okay for you to be so fierce in close combat? If you have the guts, stand further away and let us use our skills against each other. This is how we long-range attackers should fight. However, the mage players from the original server did not care. From their point of view, since everyone was so close to each other, it did not matter what methods they used, as long as they could kill them. After holding back this trump card for a long time, the mage players finally revealed it. Ha ha ha, you didn't expect this, did you? I've been training hard for half a year just to scare you bastards to death. Are you stupid? I'm good at both close range and long range attack. Who asked you to get so close to me? Eat my sword. As a mage, you should fight head-on. Don't you F*King run away. If you have the guts, fight in close combat. As the close-range attackers at the front line were pinned down by the horde of monsters, they could not return in time to help their own long-range attackers. The long-range attackers at the back row started a chaotic battle. At this moment, the mage players from the original server led the way. Each of them turned into a close-range swordsman. They closed in on other players, then raised their swords and slashed. Their methods were extremely cruel. They were treating the other servers, fragile players, the same way the assassin players treated them in the past. At this moment, the mage players finally realized how exhilarating it was to cut up fragile players. No wonder the assassin players liked to ambush fragile players like us so much. It was such a joy. Compared to the mage players' happiness, the other servers' long-range attackers at the back row were having a mental breakdown. Report. We must report these fake mages. Let the dog officials ban their accounts. Chapter 737. Originally, the Naraka server had a huge advantage in a war like this. However, although this exploration team was destroyed, they provided the majority of players with a path to the blood-red lake in the south. He felt that this force had obviously discovered something. Otherwise, they would not have sent such a huge team to the south to investigate even after encountering waves of monsters. At the end of the video, the camera shook violently. Before the members of the Asian server exploration team could get close to the blood-red lake, they were surrounded by the swarming blood thralls and met a tragic end. However, there were not many ways to earn soul coins. Where did these monsters come from? Among them, the most depressed were the non-server players. At this moment, blood thralls were still emerging from the blood pool. Soon, a second army of blood thralls appeared. Since they dared to come, they would not leave. The players were extremely excited about this discovery. They gathered people to investigate and see if this place was the source of the monster wave. In the post, the players of the exploration team uploaded a video. Soon, a large number of teams set off from Heaven Reverse City towards the south according to the route provided by the exploration team. Although they often fought, they were on the same page when it came to foreign policy. However, everything changed with the arrival of the Blood Tiger, a chess piece planted by the forces of the heavenly realm. This battle lasted for about 4 hours. When all the monsters in the mountains and wilderness were killed, the battle ended. Moreover, there were many of them this time. The marching team formed a long line that stretched as far as the eye could see. By relying on the method of continuously creating monsters, they believed that if this continued, the forces of this force would be exhausted sooner or later. When that time came, they would be able to take them down in one go. At this moment, the players were still not satisfied. They really had not killed enough. After some discussion, Gu Yu, Lu Chai, and the others from the original server decided to form a temporary team to follow the majority of the people to investigate. At this time, in Heaven Reverse City, the big region leaderboard had been refreshed. However, they knew that the sorcerers played a huge role in achieving such a result in this battle. Fortunately, the sorcerers in the backline were messed up by the sorcerers who had learned Sword Will. This prevented the long-range attackers from the Naraka server from doing their best. While they were thinking, countless swaying black spots appeared in the distance. Furthermore, the lousy officials never took the initiative to give out benefits, so they had to fight for it themselves. This was also the case with the blood pool. If they really fought, not many players would survive to reach the blood pool. All of them would die on the way. Don't let him go, he can't kill me. You are my grandson. First place. Land of Bakey, points. 6,850,000. The smile on Sun Chi's face froze. Although he was puzzled, he was prepared for it. Yes, I just received the news. I heard that the process was very tragic. The president of a certain non-server guild immediately replied. Although there were players who were killed in the chaos, it was still a one-sided battle. The players had a huge advantage. Seeing this, Shui, whose eyes flashed fiercely. All the blood thralls roared and charged toward the north where the players were. Soul coins, experience, and credit points could all be earned every time a monster attacked. His happiness was limitless. At this time, Shui, who was floating in the air above the blood pool. He looked to the north with a solemn expression. Third place. Land of Tsangshu, points. 509 million. What excited them the most was that they did not find any godly state masters in this force. In order to prevent further monster attacks, the players from the original server went forward to stop the fight. The back was empty. The originally densely packed long-range players were left with less than a third of them. Lionheart of the European server had a demigod mount, Hacker. He was unstoppable as he killed his way through the crowd of monsters. At this moment, the blood pool was surging. Countless blood thralls emerged and swarmed toward the shore in waves. As more and more blood thralls emerged from the bottom of the lake, demons danced around the blood pool. It was a shocking scene. Although he had killed all the creatures that stepped into the territory of the blood pool, he was sure that no news would be leaked back. In fact, even if the players at the back were killing each other, the monster tide still could not advance toward Heaven Reverse City. They were blocked by the players at the front of each server. Although he was amazed by the combat power of the players, he also noticed some clues. In the following days, the players would encounter a wave of monster attacks every 3 days. The players were already familiar with the blood thralls because they were part of the monster tide that would come every 3 days. In other words, even if they were to start a war with this force, they did not have to worry about godly state masters coming to kill them. The two sides that were being stopped were obviously in a daze. They were exchanging pleasantries with each other. It was not the first time that the creatures from the creepy main city of the Land of Death had appeared in his territory. He was a little worried about this. The monsters that were sent to test the waters were forced to retreat. They were powerless to resist the players' attacks. Blood Tiger relied on the modified blood pool to continuously breed blood thralls for war. He wiped out all the forces in the surroundings and occupied this territory. The players from Narako were undoubtedly the most excited. Although the long-range attackers at the back were suppressed, they still managed to achieve a good result with their technological weapons. They felt that it would not be a problem for them to surpass the original server if they worked hard. As soon as he finished speaking, countless blood-red figures appeared in front of him. They were like a sea of blood, attacking with an overwhelming force. The exploration teams from various servers set off in the following days. Blood Tiger's eyes glowed with a bloody light. He zoomed in and saw everything that was happening in the distance. The players were aware of the characteristics of Battle Royale. They knew that monsters could not be born out of thin air. There must be a reason. This was because he had thrown in all the spiritual materials and resources given to him by the heavenly realm into the blood pool. He could create as many blood thralls as he wanted without fear of exhaustion. He did not believe that he could not annihilate this force. I heard that one of your teams was annihilated near the blood pool? Let go of me. I'll kill this bastard. As the players were calculating the data and checking their rewards, the 5 leaders who were hiding in the clouds retreated. Most of the players still had to rely on killing monsters to obtain reward. The monster tide was the best time for the players to carry brick. However, it ended in a mere 4 hours. Many players were dissatisfied. Blood Tiger let out a roar at the thought of this. With this under control, the advantage of the original server players could be seen. They were temporarily in first place with more than 1,000,000 points ahead of the second-place player. About 5 days later, the exploration team from the Asia server posted a message to the players on the forum, attracting the attention of players from all the major servers. In fact, the blood pool was not as huge as it was now. It was originally the territory of the Blood Clan, a local force in the Western underworld. A few original server players in robes and longswords could be seen hunting down players from other servers. "Don't stop me. I'll let him entangle me. Come on, try to entangle me." In fact, Blood Tiger wasn't too worried about the upcoming battle. There were also who carried the zombie army with him, Chara who activated the ancestral panther state, and Eric the cyborg. In fact, the only opponents the players cared about in this battle were the players from other servers. They did not take the monster tide seriously at all. "Draw water. We have to drain the blood pool. We can't let them get away with it." Sun Chi grinned. There were even professional players who took the initiative to kill the monsters and started harvesting them. At this moment, the players were ready to return to Heaven Reverse City to count their harvest. However, as more and more creatures arrived, he had a bad feeling in his heart. Although the monster tide had ended and there was no conflict of interest, the players felt that there was no need to continue killing since there was no conflict of interest. Therefore, the exploration team set off again. "You're good. Why don't you slash me now? Go on, catch up to me if you can." Blood Thrall. Looking at the crude long-range attacks from both sides, the players from the major servers could not help but facepalm. They had no choice but to drag their guild's embarrassing playthings into the city. The European server players were also hurt. Initially, they thought that it was a pity to be second place for a long time. However, they did not expect that they would lose their position as the second place. They were actually caught up by the Naraka server. However, thinking that this battle was just the beginning, the European server players had a strong desire to improve. South of the Western underworld, the blood pool. Just as he had guessed, the creatures that arrived were still from the city in the land of death. At this moment, Guyu received a message. After checking it, he immediately asked in the live chat channel, "Kill?" Blood Tiger said coldly. Fifth place. The land of Xianfeng, points. 399 million. After the players clicked on the video, they saw a blood-colored lake. From time to time, bubbles would rise from the bottom of the lake and explode on the surface. However, what the 5 leaders of the Western underworld did not know was that it was their decision that made the players completely happy. Therefore, the players from all the major servers stepped forward to stop the fight. However, after going through 3 waves of monsters, the players suddenly had doubts. Fourth place. The land of magic spine, points. 447 million. This time, their goal was to find the source of the monsters and at the same time, to open up the map of the Western underworld. However, what puzzled Blood Tiger was why they did not go to the north or the east. Instead, they chose to come in his direction. At this moment, the mage players had a ferocious look on their faces. Second place. The land of Naraka, points. 576 million. At this moment, the players from all the major servers were both happy and worried. For example, the 9 spiritual swords that Ao Jian carried with him were like the Grim Reaper, swiftly shuttling through the crowd of monsters and reaping lives. The sword Dao realm that formed around him killed anyone who stepped into it. In the end, the Blood Clan was enslaved by him, and the blood pool was also modified and used by him. However, for the sake of safety, after some discussion, they decided to adopt the attrition tactic first. Although this place was called the blood pool, based on the area that the blood pool occupied, it was more appropriate to describe it as a blood lake. Initially, they thought that they could rise in the joint battle of the 5 major servers, but they did not expect that they would still be at the bottom after winning the first battle. However, when the players in the front row turned their heads to look behind them, they were suddenly dumbfounded. It seemed that they would have to be called the battle trash. For a while, they had watched the entire battle. The former Blood Clan had long since ceased to exist. "Boss, protect our healer." Here, not only was he the strongest, but he was also the ruler. Together with the other 4 leaders of the Western Underworld, they controlled the entire Western Underworld. However, what caught the attention of the players was the creature that swam in the blood-colored lake. It was a special life form that looked like a human, was completely blood-colored, and had no facial features. At this moment, in the army of players who rushed over, Gu Yu and the others were discussing the matter of the blood pool with players from other guilds. This undoubtedly allowed the players to find a way to become rich. Seeing the ranking of the major regions on the big screen in the central square, the players from the original server smiled. Chapter 738. The players were shocked when they saw the army of blood thralls charging at them. The scale of the army was not any weaker than the monsters attacking the city. However, the number of players who came to explore the city was less than 1/20th of the monsters. Faced with such a ferocious wave of blood thralls, a few guild leaders of the non-server guilds took the lead and gave the order to charge. Kill. All the points are ours. Charge. All of you, activate your totem skills and hold on. We, the non-server, are the strongest when it comes to points. Gu Yu and Lu Chai looked at each other as they looked at the non-server players who were charging at the army of blood thralls. They could not understand why the non-server players had the courage to lead the charge when they were obviously going to lose the battle. They were so stubborn. Why don't we run away? I have 10 bottles of soul prayer wine on me. It would be a waste to die here, Lu Chai suggested awkwardly. It's not shameful. A wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. Not only will we waste the soul prayer wine if we die here, we will also have to return to Beiki to start all over again. Why don't we hide for now and wait for the next opportunity? Gu Yu nodded in agreement. We are not afraid of death, but we will not foolishly throw our lives away. Sun Qi immediately expressed his opinion. Upon hearing this, Lu Chai immediately looked at Chen Ziyu and the others in the team. Chen Ziyu and the others also nodded in agreement. Looking at the non-server players who had been overwhelmed by the blood thralls, Lu Chai immediately shouted in the team live chat channel, "Brothers, where there's life, there's hope. The wind's tight." Upon hearing this, the original server players turned around in unison and started running for their lives. As the original server elite players who came with Gu Yu and Lu Chai were more or less equipped with the resurrection buff from the soul prayer wine, they would lose tens of thousands of soul coins every time they died. They felt that it would be a pity to waste their soul coins in a battle that they were bound to lose, so they made their decision at this moment. As the original server players turned around and ran, the players from the European server, Hell server, and Asia server were dumbfounded. In fact, when they saw the non-server players taking the lead, they were anxious and ready to rush forward to grab points. However, they were dumbfounded when they saw the original server players suddenly retreating. After a brief moment of silence, they turned around and began to run while cursing. European server, shameless original server players, what right do you have to run away? Middle server, why don't you go back and fight the blood slaves to the death if you have the guts? Don't follow us if you have the guts. Naraka, you're all cowards. You're retreating at the moment of battle. Middle server, then why are you running after us? Brave warriors, turn around and charge. Don't make me look down on you. Asia server, shameless original server players, how dare you flee in the face of battle? I don't want to be associated with you. Under the lead of Gu Yu and the others, not only did the players from the original server run away, but the players from the European server, the Infernal server, and the Asian server also chose to retreat. At this moment, the players who were drowned in the tide of blood thralls were dumbfounded. At this moment, the ferocious aura on his body was completely gone. After a brief moment of confusion, The non-server players exploded snatch points. Snatch your ass. At this moment, the non-server players also wanted to retreat. However, they were surrounded by the blood thralls. There was no way to retreat even if they wanted to. They could only fight to the death and strive to earn more points and soul coins before they died. As a large number of players were beaten into black mist and died, the non-server players shed tears of regret. These bastards' tricks were really deep. On the way here, everyone was talking and laughing. They had agreed to investigate the source of the monsters together and advance and retreat together. Now that we know about it, we King took it seriously. We'll remember this grudge no matter what. After the non-server players were drowned in the tide of blood thralls, the blood thralls did not stop moving forward. Instead, they continued to madly chase the players from the original server and the European server, who were still running wildly. At this moment, the players from all the major servers did not want to be left behind, so they ran with all their might. This time, the priest players suffered another mental blow. As a profession with short legs, they could not compete with the close combat or assassin-type players whose attributes were all enhanced by physical strength. Even the mages were slightly faster than them. At this moment, other than the priests from the original server who had started running ahead of time and could barely keep up with the main group, the priest players who were running at the back were quickly left behind. Helplessness, despair, weakness, grievance, all kinds of thoughts circled in their mind. Soon, they were also swallowed by the tide of blood thralls. They did not even have a chance to struggle. In this critical situation, Lu Chai decisively activated the sea god body. As the tide swept over, his body transformed into the sea god body on the spot. Then, the movement speed enhancement halo appeared. Instantly, the speed of the original server players increased. Seeing this scene, the players from the other servers could not help but curse again. Especially the players from the Naraka server. In fact, they had better tools of transportation, such as technological tools such as airplanes. They were definitely the fastest at the scene. However, at this moment, the incoming tide of blood thralls did not give them such a chance. They knew very well what the consequences of stopping would be. At this moment, they could only choose to grit their teeth and continue running. As the tide of blood was getting closer and closer, Li Xing's voice was heard in the European server's live chat channel. All necromancers, aim at the Asia server players on the left and release the death entanglement together. Let them stay behind. Upon hearing Li Xing's words, the necromancers in the party immediately turned to look at the Asia server players. With a wave of their hands, black tentacles grew from the ground and locked the heels of many Asia server players. After this flashy move, the speed of the blood tide's advancement slowed down a little. However, many Asia server players were in trouble. At this moment, the Asia server players were dumbfounded. They did not expect that the European server would stab them in the back. However, before they could retaliate, the second death entanglement came and many Asia server players were once again confined to the same spot. Even if it was only for a few seconds, it would be fatal at this moment. At this moment, the Asia server players were in an uproar. They began to retaliate on the spot. The strongest long-range attacker profession in the Asia server was naturally the Heavenly Bearers. They had extremely strong telekinesis control abilities. At this moment, they immediately lifted a few European server players with their telekinesis and threw them into the tide of blood thralls. Seeing that the European server and the Asia server were fighting, the Naraka players burst into laughter. There was an old saying in China, when the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. At this moment, the Naraka players felt that they were the fishermen. Taking advantage of the fact that the internal conflict between the Asia server and the European server players had slowed down, the Naraka players hastened their pace. They planned to distance themselves from the European and Asian server players and by some time to summon their transportation so that they could be completely out of danger. However, just as the Naraka players were feeling elated, a voice came from the front. Everyone must share the joys and sorrows. How can you escape at the last minute and leave early? All sorcerers, get ready to release the elemental confinement at the Naraka players and send them back. Don't give them a chance to summon their transportation. Following Lu Chai's voice, the running sorcerers collectively turned around and released the elemental confinement skill. Immediately, the Naraka players in the front row were shrouded by the blue light beam and confined to the same spot. The players at the back even collided with the players in front and fell in large numbers. At this moment, the Naraka players' temporary advantage was broken and they were forced back to the same starting line as the European and Asian servers. Looking at the Naraka players in the distance, the Naraka players gritted their teeth in hatred. Share the joys and sorrows. What AF * king share the joys and sorrows. I'm so touched that I'm about to cry. We'll remember this. Chapter 739. The friendship between players was fragile and could easily be broken. After tricking the non-local servers, the players from the 4 servers started to run for their lives. Lu Chai and the others originally had the ability to fly, but to take care of the players in the team who could not fly, they could only run with them. During this period, in order to let the players from the 3 servers at the back cover, the players from the original servers would attack whoever dared to rush forward, causing the players at the back to completely lose their morale. However, at this moment, there was nothing they could do other than cursing and swearing. What made the players from the European server, Hell server, and Asia server even more desperate was the fact that the blood thralls were moving faster and faster. At this moment, in order to let the players from the other servers be at the back, the infighting began. The players from the Hell server, who could have left this troublesome area, were not spared at this moment. They were forcefully dragged into the chaotic battle by the players from the European server and the Asia server. At this moment, the players from the European server and the Asia server had already seen through it. They only had one goal now. If they were to die, they would all die together. It was impossible to escape alone. If the players from the original servers were not so far away from them, they would definitely drag the original servers down with them. In this chaotic battle, the players from the 3 servers were eventually caught up by the blood waves and drowned. Before they died, they only had one thought in their mind. This grudge they would remember, although Gu Yu and the others who were running at the front had tricked the players from the 4 servers to death. They were also in an extremely bad situation. Due to the burden of individual players in the team, the overall speed of the team could not be increased. The distance between them and the blood waves was also shrinking. Realizing that they might be abandoned, the expressions of the healers and the mage players gradually became hopeless. At this moment, a figure broke through the blood waves and came to the front of the players at an extremely fast speed, blocking their way. Seeing this, Lu Chai immediately clenched his fist and punched forward. Accompanied by a tiger's roar, the shadow of a ferocious tiger suddenly appeared and fiercely pounced on the blood-red figure. However, the image of the figure being sent flying did not appear as expected. Instead, Lu Chai's charged punch was casually smashed by the figure. Then, the figure raised his hand and waved it forward. Suddenly, the blood waves surged and formed a wall, blocking the path of Lu Chai and the others. Everyone was forced to stop. However, to the players' surprise, the blood thralls that were chasing from behind did not pounce on them. Instead, they slowly surrounded them and formed a circle. "Let's talk." A deep voice came from the front, and the blood thralls parted to form a path. The blood tiger's figure appeared in front of the players. The players didn't speak as they stared at Blood Tiger. Instead, they activated analysis to investigate his identity. Blood Tiger, Demigod Peak. Character details: a new life created by the Heaven Realm Immortal Monarch Sun Cauldron. He has preliminary control of the power of the Blood Rule, one of the 3,000 rules of the Underworld. He controls the Blood Pool territory of the Western Netherworld and is one of the 5 overlords of the Western Netherworld. Gu Yu and the others knew that things were not looking good after seeing that this person's ability was at the demigod realm. At this stage, among the players, only Ao Jian and Reinhardt could fight against Blood Tiger. However, at this moment, both of them were absent, which was equivalent to sentencing them to death. However, the players were puzzled as to why Blood Tiger didn't kill them directly. "What do you want to talk about?" Lu Chai asked. "Can you tell me where you came from? If I recall correctly, there wasn't a force like yours in the realm of death, right?" Shui Hu asked with a smile. "You're going to die anyway. Stop wasting time and be straightforward." Sun Qi glared at him. "No, I don't want to kill you. I just want to understand something. Moreover, I can see that you don't seem to be united internally." Blood Tiger had been observing in the dark when the players were running for their lives. Just like the battle at the city gate, this force was once again in conflict. Even if they were to die, they would drag their companions down with them. This made Blood Tiger realize how dangerous this force was. Therefore, he thought of a plan that he came up with when he discussed with the other 4 team leaders. He tried to drive a wedge between this force and disintegrate them from the inside out. "What does our unity have to do with you?" Lu Chai couldn't help but roll his eyes. He felt that this boss was too controlling. "What if I say that I can help you kill all the opposing forces and let you monopolize the city in the realm of death?" Blood Tiger had a mysterious smile on his face. Lu Chai and the others were dumbfounded when they heard this. They felt that this person in front of them was really arrogant. Heaven Reverse City was set up by the stupid officials to be the main city of the 5 servers. How could you help us monopolize the main city? Did you drink too much? Did you ask for permission from the stupid officials? Why should we believe you? Gu Yu immediately asked. "You've just come to the Western underworld, so I understand that you don't know a lot of things. Although I have this army of blood thralls now, I'm actually in a very bad situation. I'm often bullied by the forces nearby. Therefore, I need allies who can advance and retreat together with me. My condition is that after you occupy the main city in the realm of death, you must form an alliance with me to fight against the other forces and help me." These words were said by Blood Tiger to appease Gu Yu and the others. He wanted the players to understand that he had a purpose for helping them so that they would let down their guard. Otherwise, helping them for no reason would definitely raise suspicions. Gu Yu and the others were stunned when they heard this. They did not believe a single word that Blood Tiger said. They just wanted to see what this guy was going to do. "Why did you choose us?" Lu Chai asked. "Because you survived until the end. Even if you died before that, I would still choose to cooperate with the last survivor." Blood Tiger was telling the truth. That was because he did not understand the internal structure of the forces in the main city of Heaven Reverse. He only knew that there were 5 forces. Therefore, this time, no matter which force survived until the end, he would choose the last one as his target. "Now that I've expressed my sincerity, it's up to you to decide if you're willing or not. However, I have to remind you that in this world of the Western Underworld, without my help, you'll die in the hands of other forces sooner or later. Moreover, you're not united, which is a bigger threat. Only after you occupy the main city can you develop in peace. If you cooperate with me and support each other, we can at least guarantee that we won't be bullied by the other forces in the Western Underworld. You can also have a firm foothold in the Western Underworld." Having said that, Blood Tiger looked at Gu Yu and the others, waiting for their reply. At this moment, Gu Yu and the others suddenly felt that Blood Tiger's words were reasonable and attractive. But they were F***king players. Putting aside the fact that the main city could not be monopolized by the original server, it was completely impossible to kill all the players in the other 4 servers. Did you think resurrection was just for show? Although what you said made sense, it was all bullsh*t to us. Then what can you help us with now? Lu Chai held back his laughter and asked with a serious face. "I can sponsor you with a batch of bloodstones that can help you improve your strength quickly." Blood Tiger took out a blood-colored crystal and handed it to Lu Chai. Bloodstone, rank 9 spiritual material. Item details: a special crystal made from 127 spiritual materials in the celestial realm. It contains a strong force of blood and chi, which can improve one's physical fitness after use. Item quality: 16. Increase vitality by 16 points. Item side effect: soul will be polluted after use. Overuse will put the user under the control of the Bloodstone's creator. The players came to a sudden realization when they saw the Bloodstone's analysis panel. Look, the fox's tail is showing. However, the players were still very eager for the Bloodstone because their souls were a special existence that was immune to all damage. They did not have to worry about being polluted by the power inside the Bloodstone. Looking at Lu Chai, who was observing the Bloodstone, Blood Tiger said, "Carefully feel the force of blood and chi contained inside the Bloodstone. This is a good thing. If you are willing to cooperate with me, I can help you with a batch of Bloodstones as a gift for our cooperation." After pondering for a while, Blood Tiger continued. "However, in order to ensure that you are trustworthy, you have to show your sincerity. Let's start with them." As soon as Blood Tiger finished speaking, the blood slaves at the back opened up a path and brought nearly 100 players to Lu Chai and the others. "You guys are not all dead yet?" Lu Chai was stunned when he saw Li Xing and the others. "I left them for you guys. Now I need you guys to do it yourself. However, I will use the Shadow Stone to record the scene of you guys cooperating with me to kill them. This way, I can guarantee that you guys are on the same side as me. Otherwise, I will send this video to that city. I think you guys know very well what the consequences will be." Obviously, Blood Tiger did not understand the internal situation of the players at all. He thought that by recording this scene, he could threaten Lu Chai and the others. However, Lu Chai and the others were laughing in their hearts. This threat is so F***ing weak. It's just killing a few players from the opposing camp, it's not a big deal. What are you guys doing? At this time, Li Xing, who was pressed to the ground by the blood slaves, could not help but ask. Lu Chai did not answer. His face showed a sad expression. "Although I have agreed to cooperate with you guys, there are a few people in this group who have a close relationship with me. Can you spare them?" "No, since they have seen the secret of our cooperation, they must be killed. If you want to occupy the city, you have to be ruthless." Blood Tiger frowned slightly. "How about this? I will give you 70 Bloodstones for each of them." Looking at the nearly 100 players from other servers who were pressed to the ground by the blood slaves, Lu Chai and the others looked at each other. 70 Bloodstones for each of them. This is F***ing rich. You have no idea. Although we don't get along well with each other, there are still intermarriages between clans. There are a few of my relatives in front of me. I have to add more Bloodstones. Hearing Lu Chai's indecisive words, Blood Tiger frowned slightly. However, when he heard the last sentence, he smiled. He liked Lu Chai's greed because it was easier to control him. "Alright, I agree. 80 Bloodstones for each of them." Hearing this, Gu Yu and the others were dumbfounded. "That's it?" A series of 666 was typed in the group live chat channel. When the players from other servers who were pressed to the ground saw this scene, they could not help but curse and even yelled at Blood Tiger not to believe the words of Lu Chai and the others. However, Blood Tiger was unmoved. In his opinion, this was just a last-ditch struggle before death. At this moment, Lu Chai made his move. 80, 80, 80. One punch for each of them. It was so satisfying to kill them. All of them were F***ing spiritual materials. On the other hand, Li Xing and the others were so angry that they vomited blood. They felt that not only were they cheated, but they were also F***ing sold. The most important thing was, why did this stupid boss not cooperate with them? I will remember this grudge. Just wait for your death.